Hi, Zizaran here with another React, and we're coming up a new POE 1 season on the 13th of June, and we have a podcast about POE 2, probably some POE 1 info in here as well, with Jonathan Rogers and Talkative Try. So we're going to watch that, and we're going to react super hard.
Hey, Exiles! Welcome to another episode of the Still Sane podcast. Today, I am joined by the game director on Path of Exile 2 and Grinding Gear Games co-founder, Jonathan Rogers. First of all, man, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. Certainly, had a good sleep. I'm happy. I'm ready to roll. So
Better?
should be okay.
Well, that's awesome to hear, and I'm glad you're not feeling tired today. You got some good rest last night. All right, kids and wife not keeping you up or anything. So I gotta ask, I'm curious. Right now, we have obviously patches coming out consistently for 0.20 for PoE 2. We have the return of Zana in Path of Exile 1. We have the League releasing on June 13th. What are the vibes right now like at Grinding Gear Games compared to, let's say, the launch of 0.20 Dawn of the Hunt? How you feeling?
I mean, I would say definitely things are definitely a lot happier than they were back then. But to be honest, it's kind of like the people who feel the pain are not like, when obviously, there's a lot of people who are unhappy and not necessarily like most of the team, right? Because I mean, most of the team consists of, like you've got artists and sound designers, everything like that. I mean, what they see is like, everyone in love with the stuff that they're making. So like the terms of I guess the people who people are mad at when people are mad are like the kind of core group of like
Right.
5 people who are kind of doing balance decisions. And so those are the people who kind of feel the pain. The rest of the team's kind of fine and chill, and it's all good. They're
That's
happy.
cute.
But yeah, there's certainly a lot of excitement.
To be fair, and also, obviously, I'm going to be pausing during this and commenting, but like, no matter how like angry you are at a video game, unless they're doing like literally like a crypto rug pull scam thing, like it's never okay to like direct hate towards like individual developers. Like express criticism, but whenever like people say like X staff should like be harmed and stuff, like that's fucked up. Because if you browse the PoE Reddit before things get like banned and nuked, there are some fucking unhinged comments saying that like people should be harmed, which is fucked.
For
That's fucked over a video game.
for how things are going. And I guess one of the nice things now is we kind of feel like we're finally getting our feet in terms of being able to develop both games simultaneously. Like we had a lot of trouble for a long time there, actually kind of balancing that. And it's like now we're finally kind of rolling, like things are working out. Like um, I think sort of found the way that we can make this sustainable. Like I sort of hesitate to say that we're like quite at that point just yet, because like
Yeah.
we're still obviously in the early phases. But if we can be launching a PoE 1 expansion, and if we can also at the same time be creating PoE 2 patches, I think that means we're kind of in a good place. There's always going to be some level of like intermixing and kind of things that go on there, but I think that we're in a much better place than what we were before. And that means that like we're sort of ready now to be like, okay, we're actually getting the way we're doing development in a better place. So, I mean, just to sort of talk about this, I mean, I was going to say this at the start of the, the live stream for PoE 1, but I suppose I might as well just say it now. So basically, like, in the past, well, not in the distant past, we always had like, the deadline is locked, the features are not, right? Like that's the way that that we want things to be. And the reason why you do that is because you can't lock both, right? You can't say this is the time and these are the features there will be, right? Because there's always development, things happen, right?
Yes.
So effectively, if you want to lock the features, you can't lock the date, and if you want to lock the date, you can't lock the features. And so basically, we in the further go past were always locking dates, but then like as we sort of had PoE 2 in development, we started to get to a point where we were locking features instead. And I think honestly that kind of wasn't the best. It kind of means that you're in a situation where when dates aren't predictable, like players don't know what's going on, and also you can't communicate with the players about when things are going to happen.
It's also like it was especially nice for a streamer to just like be able to plan out your life. For those that aren't like don't regularly watch me, like me and my wife, we planned our wedding around PoE launches. We planned the birth of our children around PoE launches. Because obviously, like I am like the sole breadwinner, and a majority of my income comes from the first like launch of a PoE. So like it was so nice that it is that predictable that I could literally plan my entire life around PoE launches. Hi Try. Hey doing, dude. But yeah, so It's gonna be. I hope we'll get back to like regular patches. Tarkov is the opposite. I feel so bad, Pestily, for Tarkov streamers because it's so nice. Like I was looking at my past 3 years where it was stable with a new PoE launch every 3 months, and it was so nice seeing those bumps and like the consistency. And hopefully we get back to that soon. But I feel so bad for Tarkov. For those that don't know what Tarkov does, they're just like, here's some events. Might be a wipe, might not be. Who knows? Oh, it's a wipe tomorrow. Have fun. And like people will literally like, especially for streamer, right? So a streamer might literally be on vacation, and it's like, oh yeah, wipes tomorrow. Get fucked.
Happen. Because because we don't know, right? It's like, well, the feature has to happen. The Huntress has to make it in. We don't know when it's going to be ready. We can't announce the date until the point where we know that that's happening, right? All I can do is give a vague estimate. So now, and I think this is going to be much healthier for PoE1 as well. We're locking dates. We know when things are going to be. If something doesn't get done, we just won't put it in. We'll put it in the next one.
That's
so
good.
I think that's a much better way of doing development. So what that means is, we've got the PoE1 release coming up, that's in June. And then, we'll have the PoE2 release 2 months after that. So 4 months from one to the other. But then we know we're locking in already. Like there'll be another PoE1 release 4 months after the PoE1 release that we have, right? That'll be locked in. And then we'll have another PoE2 release.
Am I getting 6 leagues a month? Because that sounds like the dream. Sorry, a year. I meant a year. Somebody in chat said month or something. I don't know what happened. My brain. 6 leagues a year sounds amazing. 6 leagues a month would be a little much. Doesn't that only mean a league every 8 months? No. So there'll be a PoE 1 league every 4 months and a PoE 2 league every 4 months. So that means that we will get 6 leagues a year. We're already starting to look at gauntlets as well. Yeah, 3 a year for each game. 3 plus 3. So that means if you're playing both, you're getting 6. Which I am. And there's still some time for variety there, depending. Especially like when it's more reliable, then it'll probably feel better to be like, okay, well, I played like 4 weeks or 6 weeks this time, and I really want to play some Tarkov or something. But a league every 2 months sounds really good. No, they'll still be. You could argue this might end up being better for Last Epoch, because part of what ended up being really bad for Last Epoch was that there was so much unsurety and delays with Path of Exile. So if they're able to stick to a static launch window, then it can be 4 weeks into a PoE launch, we get a Last Epoch launch. Yeah.
Release 4 months after that in December, right? So we're basically saying we're doing 4 months. It's going to be consistent. It's going to always be the case.
That sounds so
we
good.
don't want to have this kind of uncertainty around this anymore.
Same.
And the other thing that locking dates does is it kind of does act as a forcing function of like, you actually do need to to make sure you're actually shipping something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a very important element of that. So
I should turn off alerts
for 82 months.
But I don't know where my alerts are. Okay. There's a chance I've disabled alerts. I don't usually react on the screen. Thank you so much. By the way. Thank you, Isa.
Yeah, effectively, like the change in development model there, like back to locking dates, I think is just going to be way better.
I think a lot of Path of Exile players are gonna appreciate that. And man, you answered both of my follow-ups with that. People are very excited to hear.
I really like that. Like, I was watching. He had like a document with like follow-ups and stuff, which I'm a big fan of. Obviously, that's like, yeah, it's a good way to do it, in my opinion. Like, with doing that you have whenever I do interviews as well, I try to like predict what they're gonna say so that I can have a follow-up, which is good. Right.
Here, 4 month lease. I do
Mhm.
hear a little bit of an echo, Jonathan. I just want to point that out right
Okay,
now.
yeah, maybe you need to go down a
Just
little.
because everybody's going to hear it. Just a
Can
little
you,
bit more.
yeah, can you lower his volume down a little? Sweet. Yeah. All right.
Good.
All good.
Awesome. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's extremely exciting. Like, people have been
Mhm.
yearning for the
That's extremely
4 month
exciting.
cycles again instead of the almost
Right.
year long. It didn't make it to the meme. Did you guys consider
Yeah.
like just extending it one more month just for the
No.
meme? But the one, no,
No,
no.
no. Look, our priority has just been like, no, we need to get a PoE one
Awesome.
expansion out ASAP, right? Like, we
All right.
really want to make sure we're getting that as soon as possible.
And you broke glass in case of emergency. You were like, all right, Zana, it's time for you to come back. All right, here we go. Right, you knew everybody would love it. So, all right, well, that was the
Is this guy gonna ask tough questions? Are there what tough questions do people want asked at this point? I feel like we kind of got that like rougher interview out of the way. Like it doesn't really have to be a tough interview. It's also not really Try's style. Like what like just out of curiosity, what are the tough questions that people want asked at this point? We've already had that podcast, in my opinion. I think that was a needed podcast, but like, yeah, the Atlas is still ass. I think that is not something that's going to be fixed easily, though, in PoE 2.
only Path of Exile one related real question I had. Thanks so much for answering it right off the top. We'll get right into the Path of Exile 2 stuff because all that is super exciting. But Path of Exile 2, man, it's been out since December. Okay, so we're at about 6 months at this point.
That's crazy
I'm
that
really
it's only been
curious
that
about
little.
some of the stats around this.
Martini.
We obviously see numbers related to Steam, right? We almost hit 600,000 concurrents on Steam. I'm curious though, because I'm one of the maybe dozens, correct me if I'm wrong, of people who play on the standalone. And then we obviously have the
too.
console audience as well. What has been like the numbers and reception on those platforms compared to Steam? Is it similar or much smaller percentage?
It is smaller, but it's not that much
assume,
smaller. So
yeah.
effectively, I think we had around I think the concurrency for 010 was something like 890 or something like that. Like, by the time
Someone in chat just said you don't need to fix the PoE 2 Atlas if they change the PoE 1 Atlas to PoE 2. I hope I speak for a lot of people when I say we do not want that to happen, because the PoE 1 Atlas is almost perfect, and please God, do not change it. It is amazing. It is amazing. The PoE 2 one is bad. The PoE 1 is amazing. Like, I would have some, yeah. Keep your PoE 2 Atlas in PoE 2. I love the PoE 1 one. I think he meant the other direction. I'm hoping, but that's not what he wrote.
for all the people on that one, so that's kind of where you sort of ended up.
I would throw hands.
Console's definitely smaller. And I was actually talking about this recently because I was kind of
I
wondering.
forget about console.
Why, so console I think is now about. Okay, well, there's another story behind this, but I think it's somewhere between 15 and 20. The answer to why we don't know the exact number is kind of another story, but that's a side note. But yeah, it's sort of between 15 to 20, and I think it could be larger. I sort of have a feeling that like console players are not as into early access as PC players are, so I think that could be an element. So we'll see about that. But yeah, effectively we sort of had about like 890-ish.
Does he mean 15 to 20% or 15 to 20,000? Because I would be surprised if it's only 15 to 20,000. Surely percent? Actually, maybe it is 15 to 20 million. Right. It could be. No. No, there's definitely not 15 to 20 million on console. $50 to 20 dads.
Something like that around
Probably
around
percentage.
0010. And then
4,000.
for 020, I was kind of like, okay, you're always going to get a first launch dip, like compared to the first launch, right? So like it was going to go down. So my estimate was that we were going to have is around 500,000 on launch concurrents, and we ended up getting about 485. So it was like pretty close to what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like that that was pretty much around what I was expecting. So like I was pretty happy with that. So that's kind of where we ended up with that stuff. Now,
Yeah, you're
you know,
probably right,
obviously the
Craig.
numbers will be larger when we actually get in full release, and then, you know, there'll come a point where, like, you know, instead of shrinking each launch, you'll be growing each launch. It's kind of like changes, you know, how these things work. Well, assuming we're doing a good job anyway. Um, so you know, that's sort of what.
See, I've thought a lot about that. I'm not 100% sure if PoE 2 will grow after launch. Because PoE 1 has, but PoE 1 never had a hype launch. Do you know what I mean? PoE 1 was always this small niche thing that built up over time and people like whispered about and talked and shared, right? That like slowly grew over time. I would be surprised. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think launch will surpass 1 million concurrents, right? Because there will be so much hype for the actual PoE 2 launch, assuming that things keep getting better, they keep improving, etc. So I could see that happening. I could see launch passing 1 million, but I would be surprised if it grew from that, because there will be so many people checking it out due to hype, but realizing the game isn't for them. Because at the end of the day, it is a bit of a niche genre. I could even see 1.5 million concurrents on launch. I could totally see that. I'm just saying, I would be very surprised if, at least for a long time, it grows from that. Because like we are in an era of gaming where there's so much of people like checking out a game and then being like, nah, this isn't for me. And that's fine. No way, 1.5 million. No, I don't think that's a no way for sure. Because we're already at very big numbers for early access. So it's definitely not outside of the realm of possibility on a free-to-play game. Absolutely not outside of the realm of possibility. I'm not saying I think 1.5 million is realistic. I'm saying I could see it happening. I think 1 million is realistic. But it does depend on like the hype and how good the next seasons are and stuff. But I just with the way the gaming climate is with like hype and stuff like that, I'm not sure if it'll keep growing necessarily. I don't think it needs to either for a metric of success. Do you know what I mean? Like I personally, I think it's quite normal. Like, for example, something like if you've ever looked at Steam charts for Counter-Strike, that is crazy to me. Like the peak Counter-Strike numbers for like a month ago or something. Just crazy. Do you think Twitch will hit past 1 million viewers again for PoE 2? For launch? Yeah. Bots? Yes, but probably a lot of players too. The amount of people who have never touched an RPG before who enjoy PoE 2 has a solid chance to grow. Yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong. I would be surprised if it like... I wouldn't be surprised if the launch is the peak numbers for a very long time. Subathon for launch. If I ever do another subathon, yeah, it would be for the launch of PoE 2. I don't want subathons to be something happening regularly.
What I imagine to happen, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens with 030. I've got my predictions, but you know, we'll see we'll see how things work.
Okay, well that's very cool. I'm curious. I am not able to like pay attention to a lot of the reception in the other realms, of course, because we have.
Oh my god, I should fly Pestily out for a subathon, and Pestily can like help me do a subathon. That'd be sick.
US and Europe and Korea on one realm, and then we have the Chinese realms. How has the reception been like in China? Because PoE 2 Early Access came out over there too. Yeah,
True.
right.
No, it actually didn't.
Oh, I
so they're not. Yeah, they're not out there yet. So there's a lot of people in China who are just playing on the international servers because they're just they use a VPN or something like that. But actually, it's not actually officially out there yet. So we're actually it won't be too far away. I can't give you a date. Not that it necessarily matters to you per se, but for all the people in China, it obviously matters a lot. But it is going to be coming. It's not too much further away. I'm actually going to be taking a trip to China in a few weeks. We're going to chat to some of the players there, and have a chat, and so hopefully they'll be pretty interested to see
that's fair,
when that release is going to be coming out.
Right? Is it going to be paid like our version, or is it going to release directly?
It'll be exactly the same. Exactly the same thing. The price will be a bit different, because different markets have different prices. But
somebody in chat asked, would you still play hardcore after the new update? I'll always be playing hardcore. Like, the only time I was considering not playing hardcore for PoE 2 was when I was playing the LA version, which was, I don't know, 5 to 10 times harder than the current version of PoE 2. But that was like, it felt a lot more like playing literal Dark Souls or something, or Elden Ring, where it was like completely it was fucked. Like, it was like me, Ben, and Al Kaiser and stuff, and we were all like chain dying to every single boss. So like that difficulty wasn't really playable on hardcore until like you have thousands of hours in it. But obviously now the game is so much more accessible. So yeah, I'm continuing on hardcore. I'm most likely for the PoE 1 league going hardcore stuff.
I thought like so. I mean, it's funny because like Tencent were ultra keen for it to be free there because they're like, oh, like in China, people don't pay to play games. And I'm kind of like, look, it would be so unfair to the rest of the world
Yeah.
if in China it was free and in the rest of the world it wasn't for this period. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's-
basically I was
yeah.
like, okay, it just has to be it has to be pay to play.
Yeah.
That's
so
fair.
yeah, as I said, the pricing will vary a little bit.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, I had absolutely no idea. Okay, well, cool to learn. That'll be interesting to see what the reception is like over there. Okay, awesome note. Okay, here's another kind of statistical question for you. I'm really keen on all this. So recently, you guys have been sharing a bunch of stats to do with the game, such as volatile plants, which are totally 95% of my deaths. Okay, they're apparently 50% of all end game deaths in the end game, and then like 1/3 of maps are hitting grotto. I'm curious, what are there any other like surprising stats like that, and are you using these stats in some surprising ways? I'd be awesome. I'd love to learn some about that.
So we traditionally have actually not been a very data-driven company. Like we're more about just play the game and see what it's like. But recently, we did actually get a data person. They're really, really great. Like they play PoE, so like they know what they're looking for. Because this is always the worry I had, like getting data people. It's like, oh, they're not going to really know what they're doing and stuff. So this data person's really, really good. You know, so we're getting stats like this. Now, I have to say, like, we could be getting a lot more about that, but stuff like the volatile plants thing was ridiculous. But I don't think I've got anything else to really talk to you about right now. Like, if there's anything really surprising, we probably will make a post about it because that one was crazy.
Fair.
But it's like honestly, I'm honestly shocked that we didn't look at that sooner. Like, it's kind of crazy that. That we let that go on for as long as it did. Like we checked like ages ago, like back in 010 days, there were things that we checked, but like it was really only surprisingly recently they're like, hang on a second, what is actually killing people? Let's actually find that out because and so yeah, it seems silly that we wouldn't have looked at that, but when we saw that, it's like, geez, something needs to change about that. So it's funny because like single things like that can have such an outsized impact on how the game plays.
Right.
And and sometimes players don't even necessarily realize it themselves. They might just kind of be like, oh, I'm dying all the time, and they don't even connect the dots of the fact that it's like the same kind of mechanics that are killing you. So I mean, I had heard, for example, through the grapevine, like a bunch of people had said to me, oh, chaos resistance is the amount of chaos res you can get is too low. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, I mean, it is supposed to be harder to get, like there's various things like that. And it's like, okay, well, the actual problem isn't necessarily, I mean, maybe there still is a problem with that, but like the actual problem isn't necessarily that chaos res is too low. The problem is you've got this one freaking mechanic that does chaos damage that's just like outsizedly killing people due to,
and very early.
Right. It started with volatile crystals, and then it was volatile plants. And you guys did make changes. Right. I think it was in the first 0.1 patch, 0.11. You gave it like an audio cue. I swear, they killed me more. I don't know what to say about it, but so I'm interested to see what changes are upcoming in 0.21 related to them. So.
Right. Well, I mean, I want to. Now that we've kind of gotten like an easy way to check this stuff, like we'll probably just have a check again about what's killing people, and check on that a bit more regularly. Like we should be doing more of that stuff. It's just that like, what I always worry about with data stuff is like, okay, if you just if you go and just start looking at data without knowing what it is that you're looking for, sometimes you can kind of just like run into spurious things that just happen to have gone way or the other. And it's like if you look at enough data, you'll find weird outliers sometimes, but maybe those aren't actually important. Like sometimes they can just be outliers. So that's why I'm always a little bit hesitant. So I sort of like to always tell people like, okay, you have to know before you check the numbers what number is going to make you make a decision about this, because like if you don't know that before you go in, then seeing the numbers shouldn't really be the thing that informs that. It should be that like, okay, if it's above this, it's bad. If it's below that, it's okay, kind of thing. That should be the stuff you should be knowing before you actually check, because otherwise it can influence you can kind of like endlessly look at the stuff and it can drive you crazy.
Right.
That's kind of why I sort of view it that way. But I mean, obviously here it was very important to see that because that was a big one.
I know you said you don't have anything curious to share now, but are there any other like vectors you're looking at for alarming things besides stuff that's killing players? Just anything else in the game?
Well, the thing I'm doing a big data investigation for now actually is I need a better understanding. So like obviously there's got tons of people complaining about lag and disconnects and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like we've actually just like a couple of days ago, I haven't even had a chance to check it yet, made like a new data
You know, I'm like, as a side note, I'm just so happy that POE has gotten to the optimization that it has, because like those of us that played, I feel like Perandus or beyond, probably Perandus was the worst optimization we ever had. Whereas like I had a top of the line PC and I was having like 16 to 30 FPS quite regularly. No, actually Delirium, I guess, was the worst optimization we ever had. It's like, it's so nice now, like the level that we're at. Yeah, no, you're right. Delirium was the worst. Perandus or Delirium. Both were really bad. Well, I mean, Delirium was completely unplayable for me. Yeah, EU servers are really bad. That's true. But that's a different issue.
dashboard for seeing basically by data center and ISP
Depends
where
on
the
your
problems are,
PC
because the problem
setup
is that
too.
if you look at things that as an absolute rate, it's like it's pretty minimal. But so what I suspected is like, oh, you know, if you're on this ISP, if you're at this particular data center, if you've got those kinds of things, like that's where you've got problems. So we need to start investigating those like individual cases and start kind of, you know, getting on ISP's cases and saying, hey, look, this router is constantly having the problem at this time, that kind of stuff. And so
That sounds
we need to start sort of getting into
undoable.
that kind of level of understanding. So we've started now, yeah, like breaking down
Oh.
like when you log in, like we check which ISP you're with, we look at what data center you're connecting to, and then we're like recording basically on each like pair of
Is that
those, like data
normal
center
for a
and
game to
ISP,
do?
like what the disconnection rate is. If there's some kind of spike, we can log into it. So we're just sort of starting now to get into that kind of level of thinking about that stuff. And so I'm hoping that with that, we should be able to improve some of that stuff
Wow,
soon.
I'm shocked.
Since we're on it too, I was going to ask about this later. Is this related to the DDoS attacks and instability for European servers? Because I know a lot of people
So
are
that
still
definitely
talking about that.
Right. So that's definitely has been a problem. We have been improving the situation with that by like, you know, basically just working with the data centers and saying, hey, like, you know, what can you do? They've started adding a few extra things. I don't want to talk about too much about exactly what that is, because that obviously informs people to like, you know, how to potentially get past it.
Right.
But yeah, we've been doing a little bit of that. But I like I wouldn't say that the DDoSing is like most of the problem anymore. Like they still happen, right? Like that they definitely happen. But I wouldn't say that's like most of the problem. So I'd say that there are other issues. I mean, they're yeah, as I said, they still happen, but it really is. I think it really is more down now to looking at individual routes, like, you know, like working with the data centers to see, like, you know, what the pairing is like between these different networks and stuff like that. It kind of is like the devil's in the details with the stuff. And we previously didn't have as many data centers. When we started POE 2, we expanded into more data centers, you know, because we needed to, just for the scale that we were talking about. And you know, like the
Just move.
pairing for the other data centers, we worked for years with providers, like, you know, complaining about individual routes and talking about individual things, and it's like, and so it kind of meant that got to a point of stability. You know, just as we've gone to new data centers, there's just teething
Right.
problems of like, okay, like these particular things aren't working well. So yeah, we just need to do
Right.
that work again and like go
Okay.
over it. But it's honestly, it's been so long since we actually were needing to worry about that stuff that I think we got out of practice on it, and so it's just something we need to get better at again, of just
Okay.
like working with all those providers.
That's good to hear. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. This is a little bit of a spicy topic that I'd like to chat about. Okay,
Yeah.
so all these patches for 0.2 have been great. They're bringing quality of life changes to the game, new content to the game with the chase items that we're going to talk about pretty soon. There's one aspect of the game that has not been touched in any of these subsequent patches past like launch week, and that's character balance. And I know you've talked to other people in the past about the reason you're not doing character balance is because people had a very strong reaction during that initial start of early access. I'm
I
curious
still think that was a
if
mistake.
your thoughts on that might be changing, or if maybe there's a little bit of a different approach you can take.
I think it was a mistake to not at least buff. They should at least be buffing a lot more mid-league of different things to just try things. But like, I even think they should nerf. Like, it's early access. This is wild to me. Oh, Zero. But yeah, it's wild to me that people like get backlash for their builds being nerfed in early access. That's insane.
To insert some changes to skills or the passive tree or other stuff during these patches, since like reception seems to be, I think, a lot better than initial launch. What are your thoughts on it?
Right. So if you're talking, there's two sides to this coin, right? There's the nerf and there's the buff.
Yes, exactly.
If you're talking about nerfs, you just can't do it, right? Like you just actually can't. And the reason you can't, and it's like even aside from whether or not people would be accepting of that, there is just this feeling you get when you go into a league and someone nerfed your build that you were playing already. You just feel like, my character is screwed, and like sure.
The thing is, everything that I saw was nerfed was a Jung Roan type build. Do you know what I mean? Like the builds that I saw were nerfed were like somebody firing literally like 700 fucking comments per second. It was going like, you know, like the entire screen is flashing and you're like, and then people are fucking surprised when it's nerfed. Are you serious? We're spawning like 700 summon raging spirits per second and they're surprised when it's nerfed. I'm sorry, but like, if you don't have the foresight to realize that is gonna be on the chopping block, then I that's crazy to me. That's so crazy to me. Oh shit! I just started playing ads. Fuck me. Okay. I'm gonna take a break. We'll edit this out. Fuck me. They're right next to each other. In my defense, I'll just wait. Actually, I want to get a drink. I'm gonna get a drink. I need water anyway. When are you gonna start doing practice runs? Great question. For the launch. Okay, sorry. Ads should be over for everyone now.
Sure, you can respec, you can do these other things, but it still just has this feeling of like the game just like, you were standing on a chair and it just got knocked out from under you. And like no matter I think what tools you give people for respecing, people just don't sure, people can say, oh yeah, I guess I can respec, but like it just isn't great. Right. It just feels bad, like it just is something that it isn't fun. Now, if you're talking about buffs, I actually am willing to do buffs mid-league. It is something we're willing to do. Now, the issue there is just literally the bandwidth for people who can do that kind of balance. Like we really would need more of them in order to do character balance changes.
We think Druid is an
So effectively, the people who work on character balance are now working on POE 1, right? There aren't many of them. There's really, I would say, 2 people who completely sight unseen can just there are in the middle of it. So effectively, the people who work on character balance are now working on POE 1, right? There aren't many of them. There's really, I would say, 2 people who who completely sight unseen can just make balance changes. There's a few more than that who can do it with like, a lot of checking and so on. And it's like,
It makes sense because the people that are balancing Path of Exile are also able to levitate things with their mind and change lead into gold, right? I'm sure we're fully aware of that. They have like 600 IQ and their fucking heads are like this big.
Yeah, if those people are working on PoE 1, then we can't do like those kinds of easy things on PoE 2. So what that'll mean is as soon as PoE 1 comes out, like the expansion, immediately we're going to start doing patches for PoE 2, like even mid league for some of that balance stuff. So like you're
See, and he even like officially, this is the first time, like maybe I haven't paid attention, but this is the first time me hearing literally DDD classified as an expansion. I'm very excited for all the stuff they're saying, but I'm also really worried the fact that I feel like there was very, very recently that they said they hadn't started working on PoE 1's league at all, but now they're coming out with an expansion. The only thing I'm hoping what they mean by that was that they've been working on the expansion, but they haven't been working on the league mechanic. So we get a small league mechanic, but a big expansion. But I'm also really worried, like what would a rushed expansion look like? I'm a little bit worried about that. To be fair, I am also a little bit less worried because I need, and Frasier really showed me this, I need so little for me to enjoy PoE 1. I need so, like, I had so much fun in Frasier. I played like 400 or 500 hours of the only thing that was new was like ascendancies, right? I got solid 400 or 500 hours out of that. And honestly, I probably could have played more too. Was it last Epoch that came out? I can't remember. Our expansion and league, the same thing. So the classification that they're normally going with is that an expansion is something that changes something in the core game. So that'll be something that is instantly in standard as well. So for example, when Cyrus was added, Maven, etc., that was an expansion level content. Yeah. Whereas a league is something that's just a league update. Like the only changes standard we get would be balance changes. So that's like the difference there.
You're going to see in 022, 023, you'll probably see like a bunch of like that kind of stuff happening, because that's that at that point we can start doing it. So yeah, like that really is a problem. Honestly, if it is so hard to get someone to the point where they can do those kinds of things, it is like one of the hardest things. And I myself am not at the point where I can just make balance changes without someone checking it. Like,
sorry, I saw another thing in chat. Are you doing a subathon for launch? I don't want subathons to be something I regularly do. I think if it was something I did regularly, it would just feel like abusive for money almost. Subathons for me will be something I very rarely do for big launches. So I will do one for maybe the PoE 2 launch. But yeah. Thanks. Oh, what's happening? Oh, thanks. Love you. But I don't want subathons to be something that I do often. It's also like logistically quite hard because obviously I do them with my wife and my parents need to be here to help babysit and stuff like that because we have kids. Big launch to PoE 1 leagues? No, I don't know if I would do another PoE 1 one. I'll probably do one for the PoE 2 launch. I don't know. It's not something I plan to do often.
it's like I can balance things for the early game, but those like subtle late game things are like seriously seriously crazy in terms of the amount of stuff you have to know and the amount of stuff you have to understand, like in order to know what's really going to happen there. So it's like, and that's really tough. And the thing that is bad about that especially is that like I can get something to feel good like in the at the early game myself, but it's like if we're talking about like that later skill scaling stuff, like the stuff you need to really make it so that you've got the good build variety and you've got all that stuff, like that takes a lot of work. And I feel like we underestimated how much time that would take. But it's funny because looking back now, right, like the amount of years it took to actually get PoE 1 into a really good place in this regard was a long time. Like it was a long time. Now, I don't think it will necessarily take us that long again. Like I think we do, there's some benefit of experience that we have. But it's certainly something where it's like, to actually get a skill to the point of scaling into endgame correctly, it does take quite a lot of effort. And I think there was another sort of mistake as well we were making here is that like because in PoE 1 the expectation was like every skill can be your primary skill,
Yeah.
It meant that we paid more attention when thinking about each skill of like, okay, how is this exactly going to become the only skill you're using at endgame?
True.
Which wasn't like completely technically true, but it was kind of like, there were definitely like most skills were kind of designed like this is your skill, right? This is the one you use. With the
Except tail
comboing
skills.
stuff, I feel like we actually lost sight of that a bit too much, because the assumption kind of was as well, you're using all sorts of different skills, so you don't have to worry too much about whether this skill scales or that skill scales. But actually, I feel like that was actually a mistake, because what it sort of meant was is that we had our eye off the ball a little bit of like, okay, how can this skill actually become good enough to be used at endgame? And the reason why you're seeing all these build variety concerns really is because of the fact that I don't think we put enough thought into that on an individual skill basis. So this is something we really want to fix. Like definitely like
A little unsure. For now, this topic in specific, is he talking for POE 2 or POE 1? Like, is he saying he hasn't been doing that enough for POE 1 now? Or is he saying they haven't been doing that for POE 2? 2? That's what I thought, but I thought that wasn't the intention at all, that they were supposed to be used as, like, in-game skills. I think it's a great take. Yeah, I agree. I was just surprised. I wasn't expecting that to be the case at all. I didn't think they even wanted that to be the thing. Because I love that in POE 1. And POE 1 has insanely good build viability, right? Like, as an experienced player, especially on softcore, let's say for softcore, right? Because that's the most important league. That's where the game should be balanced for. On softcore, I can take every single ability in the game and kill Ubers, right? And that's probably not surprising to most people in chat. Which I think is a really good thing. I would say the only thing that starts like really like gatekeeping builds would be the Valdos maps. Because they are fucked. Okay, conversion trap is not a skill. It's not a thing. It's not a... It just doesn't exist. PoE 2 does not feel like what he's saying. No, but he's saying they want to change that, which is a good thing. You kind of can't have working combos if skills don't scale to in-game. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they do.
like we're gonna
you
do
can do it.
some
I'll do it for
fixing
some
for
bear
this
trap.
during 020, like after PoE1's out, we're gonna be doing some of this. But a lot of it is gonna come in 030. Like this is a major objective basically for what 030 is gonna be doing, is like fixing this problem, making sure that more stuff scales in the end game to make it in game viable. And like that's something that I
That's
think
good.
that we didn't think about really enough during 020, especially like that. And that I think was probably like a huge part of why the reception for that was, I mean, there were various reasons, right? But that was a thing I think that is like a major reason why 020 didn't land as well as it should have. So like that stuff there, it's like, so basically we're just going to be paying a lot more attention to that stuff. And
That's good.
like I've already got like various ideas. Like in some cases, it's going to also have to involve skills. Like it might be that for some archetypes, there just isn't currently a skill that really is like the in game like level of scaling, the level of like AOE sort of clear stuff that you need. Like some archetypes just don't have that, and so that's something that we need to fix by either changing radically how a skill works or adding new skills to make that happen. So that's kind of a real focus of that. And what I am now also saying, especially now with the new development model, like okay, the data's fixed, the content is not. That might mean that the class we are planning on adding might not make it. Now I think it will, but if it had to not make it in order to make it so that all of the rest of the classes we already have are good, then we will do that trade-off. And that is not the mindset we were in when we were coming up to 020. It's kind of like the class is the most important thing. Everything else is secondary, which I think in retrospect was the wrong way to look at things.
Yeah.
So now it's like the existing experience of the existing.
That also explains why Dawn of the Hunt was such a small season, right? I think it's more important that the season's a bit more fleshed out and that people just have fun playing. Also, especially since now they're less focused on all the classes being finished, and they even said that they're willing to release the game without the classes finished. Which, by the way, like, what does release mean at that point, I guess? I guess the main thing they're looking for release then is all the acts, right? That's what they want to have finished. I would assume
classes is the pinnacle thing. Everything else is like, we'll do it if we can, and obviously we have to still be adding lots of content, and there's the whole side of the company that makes new areas and like new monsters and all that stuff, right? That's all sort of just going on. But in terms of like character work, right, the focus is more now on like make sure that the existing classes are good and make sure that experience is good than it is on make sure there is a new class. So like that's a change, I would say, in how we look at things.
No, that sounds like a substantial change, especially with being okay with buffing things mid-league. That's not as soon as this cycle. Awesome.
Right.
I want to push or question just a little bit on the nerfing end, okay?
Thing from chat. Let's be honest, it's already out as a live service game. Release is a marketing bump and a free-to-play change. I don't know if I agree with that though, because like they're very clearly doing a lot of changes based on feedback, which is what early access is for, which is a good thing, right? Similar to like Baldur's Gate 3 or Subnautica, very clearly taking feedback in. Like, it's not that often that you see a game changing that much based on feedback. So, I don't know. I still think it's fine to call it early access. Like, they're insane amounts of changes. And it's gonna be free on release.
So, the buffs sound great with nerfs. Let's take, pull it out of a hat. Lightning Spear. Oh my god. Okay, so say Lightning Spear. I think a lot of people very quickly came to the either realization or the opinion that Lightning Spear was like the only viable skill in the end game. They moved on very quickly. They started playing other games and just left. People who stayed discovered, okay, actually, Lightning Spear isn't the only viable thing. There's all this other stuff you can try out. But because it ran rampant through the community, like a lot of people just decided, okay, I play Lightning Spear, and there's no reason to even try anything else, and then they quit.
Yep, you're right. It was really bad.
So I'm curious, do you think that outweighs the negatives of perhaps doing a mid-league nerf onto that while providing like a respec, saying, hey, Lightning Spear.
I understand. Look,
yeah, I'm just curious.
I'm with you in theory completely, right? I do understand that, but in practice, we would not be getting any friends. Right, like the people who you say leave because they're done because they did Lightning Spear and then they were done. Those same people would have been done instantly if we had nerfed it. Like I really don't think that they would have moved on, and it's just one of those things that like it's just the reality of this is just so harsh in terms of like how that works.
So for example,
I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like Lightning Spear really cements the whole like the population difference of the people that really want combo skills with who don't. Do you know what I mean? People always say like, oh, people really want combos. Do they? Are these people real? Because, what was it? 92% of people playing Huntress played Lightning Spear? I would say 92% played it for the reason that it is a one-button ability, you know? Like, yeah.
Example, like I think like was it the cast on crit change in 0-1? Was that like evident in the like player graphs essentially? Like when you saw that happen,
well, I mean, absolutely. Like I mean, not even just graphs, just reactions and everything, right? Like it is, that kind of stuff. It's really harsh. And look, nerfs are always going to be unpopular, but as I said, the mid-league nerf it is unfair to someone who is making the character. It really is, and it's like I really do believe that no matter how much respecking and stuff that you allow, it still is the case that people just feel really bad about it. So yeah, it really sucks that kind of thing kind of like screwed with the meta a lot. But even though that happened, I would say that it's not like there weren't still problems. Like, there are more viable things than maybe players say, but then at the same time, there aren't enough viable things for what we want.
Actually, you have a good point. There was a guy in chat that brought up Last Epoch. I was playing a combo skill in Last Epoch that actually felt really good. And I would also say like ED Contagion feels good. Blade Blast, Bladefall feels good. It's just like the way I've felt with a lot of PoE 2 combos was that they didn't necessarily feel good, and that was pretty bad. Like they're too much work for too little reward. Whereas like I played what was it, Devouring Orb I played in Last Epoch, which is actually it was probably the most in-depth combo I've ever played in any RPG, and it was surprisingly good. Like, I had to put down orbs in different locations and make sure that I didn't hit the same spot twice or they would all combine. And then once I had 8, I combined them into a super orb, and I bring this orb with me. So, like, I felt really good, surprisingly.
Want to deliver, right? So, like, that's something that we just need to focus on anyway.
Well, bringing up the floor is going to be a great solution, and I'm pretty excited to see those after the 3.26 expansion comes out. Awesome. All right. So I want to stay on the topic of balance for a little bit, but we're gonna tighten it a little bit, the focus. So I want to talk about skill scaling in particular. So for example, like Storm Mages as a skill, they're lightning based, but lightning elemental damage doesn't scale them, nor will projectile damage or anything related to like that archetype. It's just minion damage. Are you guys
Right,
open to like adding more tags to some of these gems to allow for a little bit more diversity and how you scale some of these more niche skills? Or is there a reason that you
So
guys are like limited a little bit?
I actually am open to that particular case. Like that particular case is one that I was actually advocating for, but there's like various pressures for various reasons in the studio about like, you know, how things should work.
Um, Somebody in chat said, would you say maybe some builds feel more like a step-by-step recipe rather than a combo? Yeah. I can't exactly put my finger on what it is, but I do feel a little bit more like Path of Exile 1 feels like a playground that lets you make your own build and play, and Path of Exile 2 feels a bit more like it tells you what to play. I can't exactly pinpoint why, but that's like my feeling as a player. It feels a little bit more, this is what you're playing now. I think it's something to do with the weapon restriction.
Like making things consistent and stuff like that. And there's also just like complexity of implementation and so on. Like there's a lot of like all of that, those changes, because we have so many stats, they just end up taking a huge amount of time. And one of the things that's interesting is like every stat that existed in POE 1 is still in the POE 2 code base. And in theory, a designer they don't want those stats to be broken, because like they might want to use them, right? And so that what that means is that every single stat sort of like change in the way that thing works. It's like not only are we supporting all the stats that currently exist in POE 2, but every single stat that ever worked in POE 1 is also getting maintained in this code base because they're all still there. And so that means it's like the ability to change like one of these things, it actually takes longer than you might expect. But what it does mean is that we've got like a huge pile of stuff that like, you know, when we need something, it's like half the time that already exists, right? It's just right there. We just use it. But yeah, it just means that like there's a lot of stuff to do something like that. So we discussed this change about having, you know, like basically should. I mean, look, I remember it even came up because when we're like, okay, like when you're using SRS, a lot of people would consider that that feels like a spell, right? You know, like so therefore, you know, like in POE, the way that you understand as a POE player is, yeah, well, that's a minion, so of course it scales this way and all that stuff, and that's fine, right? But like, if you're just a new player just turning up for the first time and you see that, you're probably expecting that your spell damage is going to increase the damage that that thing does.
Right.
So you know, like it's stuff like that that kind of means that, like, you know, in some ways I would like to make these sorts of changes, but it is a bit of a fight sometimes about like, you know, how that should work. And once again, as I said, it doesn't help that on the other side of that, there's the people saying, well, yeah, but changing this is going to take freaking ages because we got to change all these stats, right? So they've always got that on their side, kind of as an extra part of the argument there. There's always that thing. So but the thing is, like, so what you're saying there about changing that is one way we could potentially make some skills scale better. Like it's an option that we have and one that I'm willing to explore. But like as I said, I think that it isn't necessarily that one thing. It's sort of many different elements that we can do. Like it can be changing functionality. It can just be like, you know, yeah, like just adding the ability for, well, yeah, just other elements of the skill that can make us allow it to scale with other stats that we already have,
Right.
without necessarily changing how they work. But I mean, as I said, both ways can work, and I am totally open to it for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Good to hear. And here's another one that I'm really curious about, because personally, going into POE 2, I thought I was going to use weapon swap so much, dude, and I ended up not using it. And I think one of the reasons why is because there's that like that weapon swap speed penalty that still exists in the game, and you guys are encouraging combo based builds, but at the same time, it's a little discouraged. So I'm really curious, one, about your thoughts on either altering this or removing it entirely, because I do know that there's like 3 passives on the south side of the tree that lowers the amount of time, but that's it. There's no other way to kind of smooth that out.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do was to make it scale with attack speed. But as soon as we said that, we're like, okay. So like the theory was, well, it sounds so easy, right? You're like, okay, right. So whatever weapon you're switching to, you look at the attack speed of that, because you want the local attack speed modifiers to work, right? Like that's the first thing, is you can't just use global attack speed. It won't scale enough. It has to work with the weapon that you're actually swapping to. And so then you're like, okay, so sure, you look at the local attack speed mods of that weapon, and that should be able to make it work. But then it's like, okay, so what happens then when the thing you're swapping to is a staff? It doesn't have attack speed mods. It's like a different thing. It's like, okay, shit, what do we do now? There's like questions there. So effectively, like there was all these kind of questions around this that kind of came up, and then we ended up not doing it. But it's still something to do, because I agree that there's a problem. We have to make it so that I don't think we can remove it. And the reason why is because immediately would mean that something like anything that gives you sort of like mobility options that other weapons have would probably become a little bit too easy. If it was just like literally 0 swap time, like you would just be raking all day, and that's kind of thing. So everything else that would become, you know, and look, you could argue there's a problem with rake and
Is
whatever. That's a
everybody
separate
already
question.
raking? No.
Yeah, sure. But effectively, the look, I agree with you that by the time you get to end game speeds, you do need like something about that to change. And the way I think is to care about like attack speed and like something, we just need to work out exactly how that can work. And I do think that it is something that I want to try and address in 0.3 if we can. I just need to sort of see like exactly how it can work. But yeah, I agree. There's a problem, and we need
Yeah.
to fix it.
Yeah.
I will mention that like Mark's playing a build where he's using weapon swap, like you know, like that's you know, so he's kind of like, you know, it does work. Like he says, like it could be better, but it's not like unviable from his perspective. But look, I think it just probably just needs to be faster with some kind of way of
I
scaling
was
up
thinking
attack
that,
speed.
Robert.
Yeah,
Character level stealing.
I think people use it. It just feels a little clunky, especially when you're in endgame and like you want to quickly swap between abilities.
Yeah.
and stuff
As
like
I
I mean, I actually used it quite a lot in the majority of my builds. I'm surprised that he was saying he didn't use it. I found it very powerful. Like it is annoying, but I used it on every single build. It was super powerful. I would like it to feel a little bit less cancer to use though. I used it for curses on every build I played. It is incredibly powerful, but like I do agree. There's not necessarily a reason for it to feel awful. So yeah, I mean it would be nice if they made it feel a bit better for sure. Smoothing it out is a big thing, yeah. Or that it's slow and clunky, yeah.
I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
makes sense.
the speed will make a huge difference. That's
100%. Yeah.
that's the thing. Yeah.
All right, a little extra question on weapon swap. So there was supposed to be a lock weapon tech coming in 0.2.
Yes.
Not in
So
yet.
still haven't done it yet.
What happened?
We will get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
I swear it should be in 0.3. It really should. Like hopefully they'll be getting one of those QOL videos before too long with that one in it.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, it hasn't been finished yet.
Okay, and then staying on weapons just for one more moment. A lot of skills currently, well, like pretty much all skills are locked to a single weapon type. Are you guys open in the future to expanding that range of possibilities? I think like my friend Dreamcore, he used the example of being able to falling thunder using a mace and a quarterstaff. You know, it would like open up some cool tech and like unique item.
It's such a great question because like I do agree with them a little bit, but that it feels a little bit weird in Path of Exile 1, how there's no difference basically for so many abilities between a mace, a sword, and an axe, right? There's like nothing. There's no difference there, which is a little bit odd. But PoE 2 is a little bit too restrictive. So 2 or 3, like, I don't know, it would be nice.
Possibilities and is that something you guys are ever looking to do, or are you firmly
I don't think that I would. I don't think that I would want to do it, like just as a kind of a base feature like that, because, like a lot of the identity of the weapons is, you know, comes from that. Now, what I do think is,
Dude, I wonder if they'll ever add a skill that is always weapon swap, like a I'm gonna send them this in case they like the idea. But like a skill that requires you to have a weapon in your weapon swap to function, where let's say some sort of pole vault skill, right? Where you pole vault up in the air and then you pull out a mace and you slam the ground. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a combo, it's a dual move where it like starts the two first things with a staff, pole vaults in, and then literally in the air you pull out a thing and you earthquake. Do you know what I mean? Wouldn't that be kind of cool? For like, think of like equivalent to Hammer of the Gods, like a huge finisher, a combo swap. I thought everybody hates combos, so this would be a one button ability, right? That you press Vault Shatter, right? Let's call it Vault Shatter. And your character like leaps forward, vaults up with the pole, and then boom, down with the mace. What does the weapon combo add to it? That's the only way the ability works. Isn't that kind of cool? I think it sounds sick. And then he uses something from both weapons. Yeah, but why? It's a video game because it's cool. It's also not been done before. I think it sounds sick. Combo skills you unlock when you have 2 weapons equipped? Yeah. Some more requirement for the same payoff. Well, it would be like a Hammer of the God. Obviously, it would have to be stronger, right? It would have to be stronger. It would be like a Hammer of the Gods type move. And like maybe like they have different attributes and stuff, so like there will be some sort of, I don't know. I think it's a fun. I'm gonna send it to them anyway. It sounds like a fun idea.
Is important is like, okay, if you want to do uh something with falling thunder, like ideally weapon swap is the way you achieve that. And so if weapon swap isn't good, then that means that synergy isn't going to be good. So like that, I feel, is the way to solve that, is just make the weapon swapping better. That being said, like I do think that you can make things possible using uniques, right? Like you can have a unique mace that lets you use quarter stuff, because that might not necessarily be exactly that combo, but like what I'm saying is you can do stuff like that, and like more uniques is going to really be able to unlock those types of things.
That'd be awesome.
So that just comes down to like making more build enabling uniques that can do that kind of stuff. But I do think it's important to keep the identity of the different weapon classes, and yeah, it's the weapon swap where just making that better will make those cross class things more viable.
I just heard the animators screaming from a few rooms away when you said they're going to allow that. So, oh god.
Well, thankfully, it's a lot easier to animate on the POE 2 rigs, so it should be. But yeah, as I said, it really is more of a unique thing, I would say.
Okay, awesome. Well, that sounds cool. All right, so this is on progression and the Atlas skill trees. So presently, and this is I guess is more of a personal / casual dad gamer question for you. Sorry. Right now, it feels like there was a large time investment in to access not the entire trees, but just the initial like 2 points, maybe, right? Yeah. To fight your 100%. First audience with a king and everything. And I'm wondering if you guys are okay with what the progression's at. And I know you guys have been constantly lowering the amount of time it takes by upping splinter counts, making things more common. So I'm wondering, do you think with the new updates you're going to be in a better position? And why do you think you were in this position in the first place? Like, did you just miscalculate how long it was going to take people to reach these things? Because it was a lot of time in.
yeah. There's a few things. So one of them is that for sure, just miscalculating the amount of time, like definitely the case. But the other problem is that we don't have enough content in each of the kind of in-game league mechanics at the moment. Like, I mean, there was supposed to be more breach bosses than just one, right? And like we have the models, right? We've got stuff that we'll do. Like it will happen at some point, right? And it's like all of that stuff exists. It's just that like it isn't in yet. And so it's like what that sort of led to is a situation where you've got this big gulf in the middle of the progression of each of those leagues, right? Like there isn't kind of like you start breach and it's cool when you start, and there's a kind of a big gulf, and then you get to the end of it.
It's so unique for devs to just admit their faults. I just love how like still very clearly passionate Jonathan is, where he like, I mean, some of the things I'm like always shocked at, like especially when he went, do you remember when he went super in depth with the security issue and why they happen and stuff? Like, I have never ever seen that level of transparency, ever. And I love that, for better or for worse. It's such a good thing.
It's like there needs to be more of that middle stuff kind of in there to kind of like fill into, to give you points to kind of have more of that progression going on. And so it's like what I would say is like, to run with that example, it's like I wouldn't consider breach to be finished, right? Like there is more stuff that needs to be there, but to make that a full thing,
right?
And that's what we need to be doing, expanding in order to make that. So like, I mean, there is tons we would do.
Do you think they're gonna have more small breach lords, right? Because that was what I felt was the main thing missing. I was like, where are the other breach lords like Zisht and like why is it just the Yiga one? Do you know what I mean? I think that's like one of the big things missing. That's what he's implying, yeah.
Right, like with that stuff, like the onboarding of it's not good enough. Like it's all the progression stuff around it. It's just not enough content, right? We just need more content.
True, we don't have the real Giga one.
I don't know. Like, I mean, we'll get more of it in 030, but I don't know that I would say it's fixed yet in 030. Like that is something that we will be continuing to add. Like it's one of the things that I think is up there in terms of the tiers of problems that we have, for the end game. But like, I would say what I'm saying is like I think we know what the problem is. We know how to fix it. It's just really the time to make all that content and like get all those bosses and get all that stuff done. So we're with each expansion we're chipping away at it. We're adding more stuff, and like that'll get better. But it will just take a little while to just get all of that in and sort of get it done. So I would just say there's more content that we wanted to add to all of these than what was added, and then therefore that'll come in as we go.
So there'll be
Nice.
like different
Yeah.
choke points essentially where you're gonna hit these different
Yeah,
tiers.
yeah, I mean,
Right?
you get
Okay.
more of the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you compare like Breach and POE 1 to POE 2, like there's just more stuff going on with it. In terms of like
Yeah.
the different types of there's like different types of Breach encounters and the different Breach bosses and stuff like that. Like there's just more going on. So like that's the kind of thing you need, and like that level of content is what you need to kind of make it good. So yeah,
Okay.
more stuff will happen. We'll get there. Like it'll happen, but it just takes a little while to get to that point.
Okay.
So like yeah, as I said, might not in 030 we'll make improvements, but I think it's probably more like 040 will that'll really start to come together.
Okay. How do you feel about the dichotomy between something like Breach Splinters, which I'd argue is rather deterministic at this point, versus an audience with a king and accessing the ritual boss and needing to find it in a ritual and defer it? Like, do you guys like that there's differences there, or
I mean, personally, I do. Like, I like it when content feels different as much as possible. Like,
Yeah.
there was certainly discussion, like when we were talking about being able to make, like have it be early. Because one of the things we wanted to make sure we're doing is that, like, for the earlier difficulty levels, it's easier to get the audiences and so on. And so then we started talking about, oh, how are we going to do that for ritual? Maybe we need to add splinters to that. And I was kind of like, no, I don't really want to just have it so that every in-game pinnacle just works the same way. Like I like there to be feeling like there's differences and how they all work. So ideally we can sort of keep the flavor and different sort of ways of interacting with these things if we can.
Okay. I want to throw this in there. Who made the call to vacuum Breach Splinters? Was there anybody who just said, it's time, let's do it?
It was probably Mark, I would say. It wasn't me, but yes, probably Mark. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That was a pretty cool change, I gotta say. Okay, this one has to do with monsters specifically, Jonathan. And it's something we chatted about in December, and I was really hyped about it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So when we last talked, you spoke about how normal and magic monsters will be different compared to rare monsters, not only in terms of the random modifiers that spawn on them, but the fact that, let's say, a vulture demon that is rare will have an extra actual ability compared to a magic or common vulture demon. I've never noticed those in game. Are those still in game? And I'm just not noticing them.
I know what you mean. So it didn't actually happen as much as I had expected that to actually happen. So I think there's probably like 3 monsters or something like that ended up actually doing that, and like that was way less than what we expected. Like I know one of them is like the Death Knights have an extra ability and like a few things like that. But so like there's stuff like that, but it's like it didn't actually happen as much as I wanted. It's one of those things where like if I had time I would go and do a bunch of that stuff, and like we thought we were adding more of them than we actually ended up doing. So that's kind of what sort of ended up happening more is like more of the specific balance sort of happened, but less of the like extra abilities happened. And that I think what the issue is that so effectively there's a lot less monsters that can be rare than can be the monster set. Like a lot of monsters are just disabled from being rare because they don't make a good rare fight. And the intention to fix that is to make it so that when we have a monster where we say this can't be a rare because it's it doesn't have enough going on with it, that's where we wanted to add a new ability to make that happen. So it really is just more work to do that, but it's sort of hard to make that the thing that's more important than like effectively like resources got pulled off and put onto a bunch of other things. And so that's like one of those things that I really think I'd like going, but at the moment we just as I said, it's on like 3 monsters and we need to do more later, I'd say.
All right, I thought I wasn't saying it, so I just wanted to confirm that. And I was also curious, there are some monsters that instill like fear and horror into people when they play PoE 2. Is there any specific one monster that makes you like clench up when you hear it or see it on screen? I
mean,
a lot of people hated those vultures that leapt 4 screens away. Like people hated those.
I mean, the funny thing in endgame is it's probably the frickin' what do you call them? Quill crabs are probably the thing that's the most
crazy.
Or the serpents.
But it's funny. The answer is so different in endgame versus not. Like in the campaign, my favorite monster is the Eternal Knight. Like I really love that thing. It's just like one of my favorite monsters, just because I like how like the counterplay you have to.
No, really? That's definitely my least favorite. It's either it does nothing or it completely breaks my build. Oh, I hate that monster. I just leave the map. I just straight up leave the map when I get it. I do like that there are enemies that we're scared of though, but it's like, it's so annoying. Yeah, it's the reflect shield. I just leave the map when it spawns.
to do with it and that kind of stuff. But in game they just kind of end up dying. And it's like doesn't really matter.
I think that was my
But,
first hardcore
It doesn't
death,
matter.
was to the Eternal Knight.
Right.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
I do
Okay.
like them in the
Cool.
campaign. I don't like them as a
All
map
right.
monster.
Before we get into actual Dawn of the Hunt specific stuff, two more questions about the general game. So one of them might be pretty quick. Originally, when you guys were pitching Path of Exile 2, the pitch was every zone is going to have like a boss in it. Now, I know right now during early access, not every zone has a boss. Like all of them have like cool encounters and the like, but not all of them have a boss encounter. Is the plan still
a lot
for
of
every
bosses.
zone to have a big boss, or is it a little bit more dispersed throughout the campaign now?
I want that to happen. I don't know if it'll happen for release or not. Like so we have bosses for these, right? Like all of the areas in the game, we have a boss that's for that area. It's just that not all of them are finished, and it's about getting time to finish making them. So it's kind of like, okay, like certainly the promise of having 100 bosses will be like 100% like over delivered as far as like getting like once we get to release. As to whether or not every single area will have a boss at release, potentially not. But it's like we do have all the bosses sitting there like waiting to actually just get all the VFX and get all the stuff like there. Like it's just we just have to get them done. So like I eventually we will definitely get there because like as I said, the bosses are just sitting there. We just need to freaking make them. Like we have models, we've got rigs, we've got all that stuff. It's just we don't have the animation finished and the VFX done and like all the actual design work that needs to happen to actually make it good. So yeah, like as I said, still the plan. It's just that there might be other things that feel more important to us to do rather than add a boss to one particular random zone during the campaign.
That makes total sense. Excited to hear though that they're there. They're just waiting for balance. Okay, cool.
Right.
All right. Before we get into the specific 0.20 and 0.21 balance and additions, I'm really curious. Obviously, you guys are getting a ton of critical feedback to the game, and Mark really likes bingo cards. What is the best place for us to put this feedback? Is it like on your forums, on Reddit, in posts? How do you guys like to consume this best? Especially, you're talking about like an elite cabal of balancers in the game. Like how do they like to read the feedback the best? So like, what's the most productive? I guess.
Well,
The
reason we like the bingo cards is because it forces someone to really consolidate what is the most important things. Like if they're going to make a bingo card, it's like you can't just like kind of go on a rant and have a billion different little things where you kind of don't know what's important. It's like these are actually the things that you are saying are important to us, and so that's kind of the reason why I like that. Now, in terms of like, so we obviously have got our community team. They're reading like all these different places. So like, I'm gonna get feedback like the overall like sentiment of like what people are complaining about the most from them, regardless of kind of where you post it. But in terms of like what I like to consume myself, that's why we like the bingo cards. But also like like someone who makes a video essay on YouTube, like that's the kind of thing where like I can sort of listen and understand the like there tend to be like there tend to be like if they're a creator with like a lot of views, I'm going to be paying attention to that stuff, right? So like that stuff is another thing that I like to watch and understand. But as I said, like in terms of just like random people posting, it really doesn't matter where you post because our community team will pick it up and they'll get it and they'll find it and deliver it to us.
Okay, more bingo cards. They're coming your way. Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, so Dawn of the Hunt, Jonathan.
There's no way it's time to watch YouTube videos. Yeah, no, for sure they do, because like they even watch podcasts and stuff. Because like several times I've had like Mark message me about something and ask for my input on something that's later gone in the game. So they definitely do interact with like videos and the community and posts and stuff a lot. Like there's been so many times that they've messaged me directly and asked about things. So they definitely do care a lot.
I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier with disengage and rake, but the spear skills, people loved the mobility that they added to the game. A lot of people are using them on different builds.
Sure. They just have Jung's stream open as well, and just like they don't even look at like what he's playing. They just see, oh, that ability, nerf it.
Classes that are actually using the spear for damage and everything, right? With disengage especially. We saw the race with like Angermus and everybody else just disengaging through the campaign, right?
Right.
I'm curious, seeing that people really like the mobility the spear has, is this making you guys consider perhaps adding more mobility skills to future weapons, to previous weapons, just to give people more tools to move throughout the game?
Well, I mean, it comes down to what's the feeling of the weapon supposed to be, right? In the case of the spear, you're talking about, a dexterous melee weapon. Like the quarterstaff is not as agile, but it's still more agile compared to the mace. You know what I mean? Like, once swords are in, they're going to be more agile than a mace, but potentially less agile than a spear. Like, you're just kind of
Right.
wanting to get that feeling of like, of each weapon kind of has that feeling. So I mean, look, every weapon type should have some level of mobility, but like the spear really probably is about, like I always want that to be the thing that has the maximum, mobility. That's why it
Okay.
sort of feels like that. That's what makes it feel different.
Yeah, you guys achieved it. It's pretty darn mobile. I love Thunderous Leap. I'm also curious, just as a brief follow-up, have you guys ever considered more blink-like spirit gems for dexterity and strength-based classes? Because obviously this is an intelligence gem. We'll get into attributes in just a moment.
Right.
They're sometimes a little tight. Have you guys thought about like a flavorful way to do blinkish abilities on other archetypes?
If that happens, it's probably going to happen on the on the Dexant class that we haven't yet released. Like that's the one that would be in theme with that kind of ability. So
Shadow
yeah, that's
stepping.
kind of where you'll where you'll see that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one is a little way out still, but like yeah, there's a lot of design stuff along those lines, I would say, for that
Okay.
for that class.
All right, little tidbits for shadow enjoyers out there. All right. All right, so
Be nice.
on from the mobility front to crafting systems in Dawn of the Hunt. So Dawn of the Hunt introduced a lot of different crafting systems or items to the game. Now,
And we're getting more.
a lot of them are really cool. I'm curious,
From all
how
the
do you
patches they've
feel-
done.
how much should an average player be engaging with them in endgame? So I'm not even talking about campaign. I'm talking you're in the end game, you're running maps. How often should I be touching something like the Recombinator?
Well, Recombinators are in particular like the one that I would say is the most kind of, like that it does take a certain level of person to use that, right? Like that is like a for you have to be a bit of a grinder to be able to use that system for sure.
Okay.
So like
intentional,
that one,
right?
I mean, I would say that one is sort of designed to be that way. Like, and it kind of has to be just due to the nature it works. And the funny
Yeah.
thing about Recombinators, and I feel like I've said this before, even with the previous designs, that like it is really hard to make something with with that mechanic that isn't that both feels like that it's worthwhile for a player while also not completely being ridiculous from the perspective of like making the item game too easy. And it's like it's really hard to get that into a place where you've kind of got like both of those two things. Like the benefit that recombination gives you compared to
It is very strong.
to using other types of crafting methods is actually ridiculous, but yet it also feels completely like the chances are incredibly tiny to a player.
Yes.
So yeah, it's kind of one of those things where you sort of
I made a
always
lot of
end up like
rings
that.
with it.
And we're sort of
I think part of it too is that a 2-stat item in PoE 2 is so incredibly powerful, right? Like it's very, very strong. Like even if all you have on a ring to start with is you have like 80 life. Like I don't know. It's very, very much powerful in PoE 2. I made a lot of my rings, my belts, my amulets. They all started out, and same with like amulets, right? If all you have is +3 and life, that is already very strong. Because you can still regal and exalt that and hope you hit a 3rd stat. Recom is OP, literally build enabling. Recom is a scam, in my opinion, experience. I like how those lines were next to each other. Seems like people either love it or hate it. Yeah. Well, I think the people that love it realize that you're going for not necessarily, like you don't necessarily need to go for the single best outcome, right? You might go for tier 2 life and tier 3 resistance. That's already a super powerful start in PoE 2. Whereas the people that think it's a scam are probably going for double of the best outcome and have a 0.8 chance of it happening. And they're like, this is never going to work. Whereas I was going for things that had 13 to 40% chance.
I've had trouble with recombination a few times. As to whether or not players should use it more, I mean, we sort of the target was that people would be using it like once per expedition, and I guess I don't know if we've like completely succeeded at that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like that's kind of one of those things. But yeah, that one I would say is definitely one of the harder ones. Like for the other ones, like
Well, what with recombinators for me, what frustrated me a little bit was that in my opinion, they had it almost perfect in Sentinel. The only thing I personally would have changed from Sentinel would have been probably slightly higher chance of bricking when it went core, because you Like, it shouldn't be just better than other crafting mechanics, so it should be a higher chance of breaking. Slightly, but it shouldn't be able to do anything with influenced items, and it shouldn't be able to. It can move fractures. I'm fine with that, but you should never be able to have multiple fractures on one item. That was stupid. Or influence fractured. If you remove that, then the way it was in Sentinel was perfect. Maybe have a minimum amount, like it needs to have 3 mods on each item or 4 mods. What I really dislike about Recombinator and PoE 1 is this whole meta of like 1 stat, 1 stat, 1 stat, 1 stat, 1 stat. Oh, 2 stat, 2 stat, 2 stat, 2 stat. Oh, perfect item. It's like, I don't know. I think that's stupid.
We want a variety. Like some of them you should be using all the time. Some of them you should be using much more rarely. You know, we're about to add a bunch of these new runes and things like that. You know, like those ones are kind of intended to be like, you know, like they're a thing you want to find. Like they're rarer. Like, you know, they're cool chase drops to find that. Those would be relatively rare, but you know, still way more common than what the current rarest shit is. So you know, like because we had that problem, of course, you know, that we found out, and that one, you know, like so effectively it should be a mix in my opinion. We're kind of a little like want to really make sure though that you don't get to the point of like you get suddenly inundated with like too much all at once. So we just have to like balance that a little bit.
Okay. I'm curious about the socketable system, Jonathan. So right now you touched on a whole bunch of chase socketables are being added to the game. And right now many of the stuff in game are meant to solve simple problems, right? The rune system was pitched as kind of a replacement for Path of Exile once crafting bench. And with these new chase socketables being added to the game,
my opinion,
it seems like that might be fading a little bit away. Is there going to be other ways to solve these simple problems that people have in the future or imminently? Or
well, I get so I guess the feeling that we have.
I still can't wrap my head around why they're so against the crafting bench. Like, you give up an affix on the fucking item. It's so good. It's just so wonderful. I love the crafting. I'm such a big fan of the crafting bench. I don't know why they're not. It does bug me. I love the crafting bench.
Get deeper into the end game,
because runes are objectively better. No, they're just not. They're just not Scrya. They just aren't. Crafting bench is awesome. Runes are objectively worse. Runes are good as an addition for like other stuff, but crafting bench is better than runes in every way.
Then you'll get to the point where the base items that you're getting, because they're getting better, are kind of able to solve your problems more, and so therefore you don't have as much need to rely on the runes to do that. Now there'll be people who will argue that like they're still having to rely on them a lot for things like attribute requirements, and that's like another whole topic that we could talk about. So you know, like that's a thing for sure. So it's kind of like, but the ideal we kind of want to strive for is like as you progress through the end game, your items are getting better. You no longer need, you know, like you might be a bit overcapped on res, you know, because you're getting the items are getting better. Therefore, you're like, okay, you're getting to the point now where you can say, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice this rune slot, and that's right around the time when you're getting these like rarer chaser and other socketables coming in. So that's kind of like the feeling that we sort of want to achieve. And so then by the time you're like ultra top tier, you're like, I'm not using, you know, I'm basically not using any attribute or resistance socketables. You know, I'm only using these like ultra chase like really things, or maybe it's like kind of, you know, 75-25 with 25 on you know, just to fix that one resistance that's not quite right, like that kind of thing. That's kind of where we want to be as you kind of get through that progression, to kind of get that feeling of like another feeling of progress for the character.
Okay. On the resistance front too, we'll talk about attributes in a second, but resistances especially, I and many other players have found it almost, so when you find a new cool item and you want to replace it, but oh, it's going to replace an item that solves many of your resistances, right? It turns into this whole game of gear shuffling, and this is primarily, I think, an early end game thing, right? You don't have a lot of currency to trade with, or maybe you're playing SSF, and this basically ruins your character, and it causes you to need to reshuffle everything. Are you guys aware that is kind of like the PoE 1 like gem system, where the whole shuffling constantly had to occur, and that you have to juggle these defenses to maintain that base level of LE res? And you think there are any solutions that could be added to the game? I know in Path of Exile 1 there was like the harvest resistance swap on items. Maybe that could be like an omen that could be found.
So the harvest resistance swap. So I actually talked to Mark about this recently.
Okay.
We were discussing about like whether or not we were happy with the harvest resistance swap, and like we were kind of like, the worry there is that it does make things a little bit too easy as far as the item game goes, like for sure. Like he was kind of like he sort of had the opinion that like, you know, like that's kind of like it's part of what like yeah, it's sort of part of what sort of trivialized, like, getting getting things exactly where you needed them to go. Like, he's kind of the opinion that that was too powerful. We sort of talked for a while about this, and the issue that we were having is like, okay, so I'm like, okay, sure, so you could make something like that, but just make it really rare, right? And it's like, well, okay, but if it's rare, then you're not
No,
exactly
it can't
solving
be
your gear
rare.
shuffling problem because,
Yeah,
like,
it's
that you need to be
pointless
doing that
then.
all the time. So it's kind of like we're in a bit of a hard place. So I actually don't really have an answer to how like we can improve this without kind of like compromising the item system, what we would consider to be too much of a way.
Well, I'm trying to make an argument for why harvest swapping is too powerful. It's the resists. It's just your baseline. It's a pretty basic problem you're solving. Is resist supposed to be that hard of a thing to solve? Is what I'm thinking. What's the benefit of making your resistances cumbersome to solve? I feel like there's so many other things that are more interesting anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the bare minimum defense. The main issue is people swapping max res, I think. I think most of us are okay to meet at a middle ground where all we can change is res. Not hybrid mods like the incursion mods, just base res. I would like to just be able to switch base res. That's all I care about. I don't care about swapping max res. I don't even care about them divining. They can stay at the same bracket. Right? If you want to nerf it that way. I just want to be able to change the base res because that's step 1 of a build. That's not OP, in my opinion.
Like, so this is I guess this is a potential concern. Now, the runes in theory kind of do address that because it's like you can temporarily kind of like use them.
You're not excited for finding new items anymore if you can fix everything on the bench. The alternative is that people are just buying items from other players. You're effectively buying the exact same item with the different resist anyway from another person. You are rest swapping, but you're trading another player to do it, which puts another negative point on the game, right? Because right now, trade is awful. But the game isn't balanced around SSF. SSF doesn't matter. SSF was just added as like an afterthought. They've always said they don't balance around SSF. Or you intentionally use a worse item just to fix the problem, having the good item just sitting there. Yeah, I definitely don't feel like this is the exciting outcome personally. Shouldn't that logic apply to your hardcore criticism too? Yeah, you could make that argument. The game was initially made around hardcore, I guess, would be the counter argument there. Like, softcore wasn't supposed to exist. It is obviously healthier for the game that it has softcore, but initially they weren't gonna have hardcore, softcore at all. But yeah, softcore obviously is better for the game. I would argue though that the game being balanced around hardcore to some degree, that things are doable in hardcore, also makes it make more sense for softcore.
But then the concern is, okay,
A
and
lot of
like
people
we've already
wouldn't
sort of
fix.
thought about this, but we kind of like are sort of probably just okay with it for the time being. Like, obviously, the concern is, and this is the thing Mark brought up, is like, okay, you can't take a socketable out. These chase runes, if you can't do that, it does mean that you're going to be like, okay, I'm not going to use it until I know my gear is perfect, right? Like, there's this concern if they're chase. So we did sort of discuss whether or not we want to think about that. Now we are just gonna, for the time being, just leave it how it is. But like, there's definitely this concern of like, okay, if you got to really chase socketable, like you're gonna save it for only an item that you know is perfect.
Yeah,
And so yeah, we'll sort of see how that plays out. But we'll
I
have a
would.
look to that a little bit later.
Okay. Okay. I'm also curious on like the attribute front. It seems like right now, the introduction of spears, it became prevalent to me, and in 0-1 it wasn't as crazy. It seems like attribute requirements are super high for some items and even some gems. Are you guys aware that they might be? I don't even think it's that much. I think it's like maybe 10-15% too high. Are you guys looking into adjusting that at all? Or
So
are you okay where they
this
are?
is another one of those things that I kind of was thinking about. So I was kind of like, okay, I think what it comes down to is this: if you are playing a strength character,
Mhm.
and should it be the case that you don't have to worry about attribute requirements for strength gear, or should you still sometimes run into something where you're like, okay, I need to allocate a bit more extra strength for this? Like, should this be the case or not? It's currently kind of balanced to a point where it's like, like you have to occasionally care about attribute requirements.
Mhm.
And what that means, of course, is that if you then want to splash and do something else from a different character, that's like relatively harder, right? And so I was sort of thinking about this, and
Insanely
I was like,
hard.
I might be open to lowering it a little bit down for gems to kind of allow
Yeah,
for more
try.
of that like thing. I wouldn't be much, I think, like, because I don't want to make it completely. Like, I feel like in POE 1 it was kind of most the case that attribute requirements were pretty irrelevant for a lot of things. Like, it mattered a little bit, but like not very much. Like, I don't think it mattered a lot, and so we did want to kind of make sure that attributes mattered more. But it's possible we overshot a little bit for the gems. I think for the gear, it's
Yeah.
okay. I don't think that we've got like a huge problem there
I think for
necessarily.
hybrid gear, it's
Although there are
okay.
maybe a few
The gems
cases
are the
where like people would
problem.
argue that it's not right. I could
The
definitely see the
gems are
argument
really
for gems
bad.
coming down a little bit.
A
It's one
lot.
of those things that I want to definitely have another look at,
Evan,
because it's something that we can definitely sort of think about changing for sure.
okay.
The main thing is just making sure that people can run builds, but on some level there is intended to be an optimization problem, right? It's like, okay, you got to be thinking like,
Right.
okay, if I want to do this and use this off-class thing, it's like now I'm making a sacrifice somewhere else. Like like having to allocate the
Yeah.
attribute.
So Quicksilver in chat said gems should be half of what they are now. Maybe not half, but you're not far off. Like gems are way too high. And I think gems coming down gives us more room to spread our stats out a little bit more for stats as well. But like it does need, I like the high level gem need high stats. It's very prohibitive. I think it's very prohibitive. It makes any form of hybrid stuff or using different colored gems, like, I don't know, it's really rough. How much? It's over 200 for level 21, right? It is extremely prohibitive. I think it's very bad. I think it's a bad thing for the game. 209, 205. They won't reduce it much. I'd say like level 21 should be like 160. That's already very high. Because then you can like do a little bit more, like if you're a strength character, you can do a little bit more into dex and like, you're still going to use those attributes in something.
Attributes is what prevents you from making a build that's just literally the best thing from every class on one build. Like, that would be an ultra dominant. Like, the attributes are the only thing really preventing that from being the case. So especially with more of the combo stuff going on, we just have to be a little bit careful about that. So that's really the sort of the only control level we have around that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Now, yeah, especially on spears. Spears, I feel like those, like, because they encourage you to go in like sometimes all 3 attributes or 2 certain attributes, and it gets a little tough. That's just what I experienced. So maybe a little bit on that front, but
Is there a tri-attribute spear?
I believe that maybe I'm crazy. Chat's probably going insane if I'm wrong. I thought there was. I might be wrong. But I remember I was just struggling in 02 or 010.
Right.
I was not. And
Right.
it was rough. It was rough in 020.
Right. Okay. Understood.
Okay. So here's another curious one that I've seen a lot of debate about. So movement speed in Path of Exile 2. We're not even going to talk about boots, Jonathan. I just want to talk about the baseline movement speed, and not compared to monsters or anything, just the overall movement speed of a character. And the monsters too. A lot of people feel like it's too slow. And like a gauge people give is when you get Hare's Foot, that boon in Trial of the Secama, it's like 30% increased movement speed. People are like, oh, that's where we should be, right?
Maybe not that fast.
How do you feel about it maybe being a bit too slow? Do you think it's fine where it is? Just in general.
Well, as far as I know, and I could be wrong about this, but I as far as I know, the baseline movement speed in POE 1 and 2 is the same. Like, I don't believe it is actually different.
I would
the
believe that.
difference
The
is
baseline.
in like
How much
the things you're doing, right? Like the skills that allow you to move all the time and all that stuff, right? As far
No way it is. The baseline when you started the beach? Of course. That's very likely the same. With no Quicksilver? Are you dumb, chat? We have Quicksilver in POE 1. I would totally believe that the baseline is the same or very similar. We're very slow in the start of POE 1. We're not talking about Quicksilver. I think chat's just like a bit cooked here. We're talking about baseline with no movement speed boots. No, I gotta remember, you can get like 70 steps, you can get Quicksilver, you can get shit tons of movement speed on the tree. Like, I think the baseline is the same. But we do have a lot more tools. Like, just Quicksilver. Oh, the Onslaught doesn't even give movement. No, way, it does give movement speed. Does it? No, it doesn't. It does. Onslaught doesn't give movement speed in PoE 2, right? Halved? Did it always? Wasn't there a point where it gave 0? Was that only the LA event? %20 increase heal speed and 10% movement speed. It didn't always give movement speed, right? Maybe it was only an LA event. I don't know. I remember at some point discussing with somebody. Version changes 0.1 introduced to the game. Okay, cool. So it didn't always. That's why I remember 0. I just remember at some point that it didn't. Fascinating.
As far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as movement speed is concerned in general, I don't want to spoil anything, but like we are working on things around this for 030. We do have ideas for what we want to do. I don't want to break the combat system. Like if we just buffed movement speed for the player, like the baseline, it would break the combat system in a lot of ways. Like we'd have to do a lot of stuff. There's like animations. It would be a huge deal.
Yeah.
But we have some ideas. You know, but we'll talk about those a little bit. Like just probably 030 announcement. I would say as well, we'll be talking about that. But yeah, we've got some ideas. Like I think that there is something we can improve here. That will be the best of both worlds,
have
still
mounts.
having combat mattering while still, you know, like being something that can help players with this concern. So like there's stuff.
Do you know, after seeing all the romance stuff though, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of mounts in an ARPG, I think. I feel like mounts are more of an MMO thing. I like mounts in MMOs. I don't love mounts in ARPGs. Do you know, I would probably be happier if they removed mounts from PoE 2. I don't think we should have mounts. I would never want to see them introduced in PoE 1. I've seen it now, and I'm like, ah. What about cosmetic mounts? I would like mounts for town. Like, if we're ever in a town and you can have cosmetic mounts in your hideout, I don't want them in maps. I don't want them in combat. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a healthy thing for the game.
Stuff that we can do. But
So maybe
yeah,
something
I guess
that's
I wouldn't
like a little
really
bursty, right? It's not maybe tied to gear. It's just every so
Right, right.
often
So-
you get a little dopamine
yeah.
rush.
So we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see about stuff like that. So
Okay.
yeah, I definitely understand the problem, right? Like so in terms of tier 1 issues that we have that we want to address in 030, this is in the list, right? Like this
Oh,
problem
awesome.
that people have. Like
Okay.
you know, like I mean, we've got our list of tier 1 issues that we're like we can't release 030 without. You know, like even though I said we weren't locking features, I mean, some of the things are easy. Some of these things we're like, here's the tier 1 issues we.
We're working on it.
This is one of them. This movement speed concern that people have is a concern. But as I said, I just don't want to ruin the combat system too much. So that's why we have to be a bit careful.
Okay. No, that's fair. Completely swapping gears, Jonathan.
I really want to take a toilet break while we're swapping gears. I'll be right back. I'll play ads now so there's none in the middle of the interview. I'll be right back. You have to forgive me. Shut up, Bertini. Bastard. In the hospital 2 days ago. Leave me alone. Cut me some slack. And then you're a PoE player, the PoE ones. PoE ones community direction, PoE 2s made me think most of you guys are complete morons. I think most of us are. To be fair. To be fair, I think most of us are. Bait used to be believable. I don't think that's bait.
You guys added a pretty cool item in 020 in the Grand Project Precursor tablet. And it allows you, if you use it in a tower, it allows you to go into any map node or in the radius of that tower. A very interesting person brought up the fact, oh, maybe this is a little bit of an experiment to bring this as a core ability to towers. It makes Atlas traversal so much smoother. You know, we can get to cool destinations faster, skip around to the maps we'd like to play. Is there any chance in your mind that this would go core?
I don't think that I want something like. I don't think I'd want that to be core to towers, but like, I guess if you're saying things like that, it sort of implies that you're not finding the things you want to find easily enough, which is the thing that I'd be looking to address with a concern like that. So that's kind of how I'd see that. Like, it's like if you feel like that's necessary, it's probably because there's something wrong with the way that the like the amount of stuff you're finding. So there's definitely something that we need to address there. Like, there are some concerns around the stuff for sure. I mean, one thing that we just actually, I don't know whether it was deployed or not. Maybe it might be in 021 actually. Because like right now there's this like thing where there's a horrible imbalance of what maps like some maps are way more common than others. You know, and this is something that we have a fix for. As I said, I wasn't sure whether or not it went out in a point release or whether or not it's a 021. I think it's in 021 actually.
I think it's coming in 021. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's in 021. So, you know, we're effectively making it so that like the map's much more even. So like you won't see nearly as many like you know, I think it's hidden grottos, isn't it? The one that
hidden grottos.
You get
yep.
Yeah, you get constantly. So yeah, like stuff like that, like will improve a lot. So I think that'll help as well. Like I think it really just comes down to balance of like when you find things, where you find them, that kind of stuff. Like to me, that's really what it is. And I guess it also comes down to sort of like the other reasons you might want to be like skipping more of the Atlas content is that you're not feeling like you're seeing what it is you want. And I guess that's another larger issue with towers.
I don't mind Hidden Grotto. He was just saying we were seeing it too much, right? Not necessarily that the map is awful. I mean, it's a little bit backtracky, but no, I don't know. I kind of like that map.
Well,
I think another thing that people really would like is more just player agency, right? To be able to, like you kind of said, run the maps that they'd like to run.
And that's why we love PoE 1 so much.
Run and the Grand Project tablet allows that, right? If you see a breach and a ritual and everything on your favorite map layout, but it's on the opposite side of the tower and you got to run 10 maps to get there, you know, it kind of is a feels bad moment. But just more like...
There's actually so that is a broader issue that I've noticed with the current way the Atlas works, which is not something that we initially... It's actually comes down a little bit to the overlapping tower thing as well. And it's only sort of a realization that we came to recently. So how can I put this together? Like, okay, so there's this issue of like, if you know in advance that something isn't the best, then it feels bad to have to kind of go through it like already knowing that it's not the thing you wanted. And so what I'm talking about this is like, okay, and this is something that the old Atlas, like in PoE 1 Atlas didn't have, that PoE 2 Atlas does have, that's like, you know, just sort of think about it. It's like, okay, so the overlapping towers thing is a great example, right? It's like, if you know that overlapping towers is the best thing, then every time you see a non-overlapping tower, you're like, oh, I have to just get through this so I can get to the next overlapping tower. And like, let's just say, for example, and like this is a terrible idea, so I'm not actually going to do this, but I'm just like, let's just say, for example, that we had a mechanic where, and I wouldn't do this for like 10 reasons, but that like when you run a map, there's a random chance that it turns into a tower, right? Let's just say, for example, we had that mechanic. What that would mean is that now you at any time could get the best thing. So you don't feel bad about running maps that you know can never be the best, because at any time the maps could be the best. And this comes down, I think, to the sort of core of like AIPG itemization as well, where it's like one of the reasons why it's good is because like, you know, the
You know, a part of what he's talking about too is also, in my opinion, a devastating thing for gaming that I don't know if we can come back to. But I showed that short recently of like gaming in 2000 versus gaming today, and we really do min-max. And obviously, content creators are a big part of why this has become so bad. But we really do min-max the fun out of gaming. We really do. It's so hard. It's why I'm really glad that solo self-fun exists. I'm so happy that solo self-fun exists. I'm going solo self-fun in the next POE 1 league, pretty much no matter what. I'm so happy that it exists because it really forces you to play the game a little bit more the way it's intended. Like, I'm sure like RuneScape players especially can empathize with this, but like, you know, you very often will start grinding whatever's the most efficient and not just what's fun. So, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird trend for gaming for sure.
next rock you turn over could contain the mirror drop, right?
Mhm.
So it's like you don't feel bad about killing monsters, even if like, you know, like assuming we get everything right, that is.
Don't you have to min-max even more on SSF? But it's in a different way that doesn't necessarily detract from the game. Like, a lot of people, not everybody does this, by the way. There's probably a lot of people that like, this isn't a problem for me, but it is a problem for a lot of people in chat where they will very often end up grinding something that isn't fun for them because it's the best thing to do. And they feel like they're missing out if they aren't grinding that thing. And then it's a problem. When you feel forced to grind something that isn't fun just because it's so much better. It's the same whenever you're feeling... It's why with like things like ascendancies and stuff, whenever the POE 1 ascendancies, etc., are in the spot where I'm sitting there with difficult choices, that's my favorite feeling as a player. Whenever I'm doing, for example, let's say I'm ascending champion in like 2.3 or something, and I'm like, well, I'm only taking those 4 points because there's nothing else good. Like, of course I'm taking those. Actually, yeah, tier 17s are quite bad for this, right? Like, why would you not be doing tier 17s? Why would you be doing an elaborate strategy in tier 16s when tier 17s are just more profitable in every way, right? Actually, I quite enjoy Sanctum. Like, I actually have fun running Sanctum. I enjoy it a lot. Thankfully, because yeah, for a lot of people run it in spite. So that is definitely a little problematic. I'll get back to reacting. Hello. Hi. What's up? For me? Is it? Uh-huh. Oh, interesting. Oh, thank you. Love you. Wait. Sweetie.
You know, because it's like, okay, there could be a good thing like right around the next corner. It's like if you knew that every monster that you killed was going to drop nothing. Like, let's say, so here's another example of a thing that would be similar, right? Let's just say that all the monsters in a map drop nothing except the boss, right? Let's just say that that's what you had.
Okay.
If you had that, killing all those monsters would feel like a
I really like what he's doing as well. Like, this is my favorite way of like making an argument. Like, really, like, it makes it really easy to follow.
chore because like there was no chance of that ever returning anything for you, right? You're just like, I just want to get through this to get to the boss, right? And so you've kind of got a similar thing going on, but on like a higher level with the Atlas system, where it's like, you know that this part isn't the best, therefore like I feel bad having to grind through it. Like if they had a chance.
You mean like Diablo 4? D3 had it too? You guys completely missed the point. I'm saying I like that style of communicating. I didn't say I like that thing in the game. You completely missed what I said. It was just a good communication style.
Of being the best, it would be fine. So I feel like we need to find a way to make that more the case. And like I was sort of discussing like as a random example that's kind of a bit related, although not exactly the same, of like, you know, in POE 1, any map could just randomly spawn a breach.
Yes.
For example.
Yes.
In POE 2, you know when you don't have one. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like there's this like so like that sort of element sort of like has a thing there. So there is something to this.
Yes. I love PD2 does that really well with their maps. Like, I want more random things in my map, which by the way, you know the new unique strongbox in POE 2, like the Venter strongbox thing? That is god tier. That makes the game so exciting. I want like way more exciting random things that can happen. Like, you know, that's why chase items are good. It's why I'm always being like the chase guy, right? That's my, in every game I've always played, I want random fun outcomes that can happen. It's why even baseline Diablo 2, for being such a primitive and old game, has so fun monetization because there's so many interesting things that can happen. It's why Breach was such a good mechanic because it has 4-tiered RNG system of fun things. Like you're opening a breach. Oh, it's Chayula. This is already exciting. And then you have the items, and then you have that the Lord can spawn, right? Like, and like my favorite game of all time, Darkfall Online, had like these like chaos chests that were like around the world, and they could have basically any item in them, right? So they're a bit like a void card, but like there's so many exciting things when something can happen at any point, and like obviously a mirror could always drop, right? But that's so rare that it can't happen, and it won't happen for most people. But I love when it's a little bit of an adventure feeling to every map, like, oh, what's gonna be in here, right? And it's the same, like, you can do this in so many games too. Like even Minecraft has that, right? You like crest a hill in Minecraft, and oh, there's like a little city there.
And like I can see that there's a problem. I just need to sort of work out exactly how we're going to. And the things that like as I said, the thing I just said there before, like that would solve the problem. I just hate it for 10 other reasons. I'm just sort of putting that out there as like as like an to evoke the idea of how it would feel to you if that was how it worked. You know what I mean? So like that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about how to sort of resolve this problem. So we do need to do something. Like I like a lot of what the tower mechanic does, but like there's still not something quite right about it. Like
Yeah.
there's some stuff we have to do, and I also really love that sort of feeling of exploration thing going on.
To be fair, the towers are probably the best version of the sexton we've ever had.
But you know, I guess something we didn't realize is like when you can see things in advance, you have to be really careful that you don't let the amount of importance that
No
that
more
can
land to
have be
buff.
too high, because that undermines the feeling of everything else. So like that's kind of like a thing. I guess we need to think about. So yeah, there's certainly some stuff to think about here. We need to work out what exactly we're going to do about it.
All right, yeah, I think you're touching on the exact feeling I had like when going back to Path of Exile 1, and I always had that feeling of surprise or mystery going into all the maps, and that's just not.
Why are they the best version of the sexton? I mean, I don't even have particularly strong opinions on it, I guess. I just sitting there with an item on your atlas and spamming like 300 sextons to get one mod was really bad. This is more, you run one map and then you put in 3 sextons, and there's no like, you're not sitting there rolling and stuff, and I guess I quite appreciate that part of it. Sextons removed is a bit, yeah, true.
Not in POE 2, so I'm glad that it's on your guys' radar. That's awesome.
Right.
Oh,
well, I mean, in 0-0, we did intend to improve that situation by adding more random things. And so having more random things that aren't just the leagues is also a way to sort of improve that. And so 0-2 helped with that to some degree. But I do think that there's still like an issue around that to think about.
Okay, awesome. Okay, let's see. I know we're running short on time. I know you have to run in about 25 minutes. So I'm a little bit curious on, let's see here. I'd love to touch on races for just a moment, since you guys are running quite a few of them. Okay. So they're obviously back for Path of Exile 2. You guys have been running them pretty consistently.
I love that they're running races.
I'm curious, is there anything in particular you guys are trying to glean while watching these races? Like, are they influencing any balance decisions? Or are they showing you, you know, oh, well, this part of the campaign could be improved in a certain way? I'm really curious to hear. Or are they just pure for entertainment?
I wouldn't say that we learn much about things from that perspective beyond just about what races are doing, right? There's obviously changes we could make for races in particular. It doesn't influence too much about the rest of the campaign, I would say, just because like the things that they're doing are really just quite outside the norm of what normal players experience. So yeah, it really is more of just a like, you know, fun thing we enjoy doing that, you know, like that's more of what it's about. I wouldn't say that there's like a kind of development reason to run them per se.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This is a very early game question, Jonathan. So, and the guy I'll use as an example is my dad. So, a lot of very new players to ARPGs, they started playing POE 2. It was like their first ARPG ever. And a lot of them are unaware of the importance of certain items in the game, like crafting currency, right? A lot of people like will just hoard it, even though the currency says, hey, use me.
Yeah, I agree. ARPGs really could do with like a better tutorial. Like, if you want to onboard new players, like it really needs a better tutorial
on items, right? Are you would you be open to idea of like maybe doing a very short like quest or tutorial in Act 1 to
Yeah.
put people on this path, because once I showed him how to do it, Jonathan, dude, he's ground more
Yeah,
than
yeah.
I have in PoE 2
Right,
this season. So.
I actually already had this idea, and it's already something that we've got in the works. So yeah,
Oh, that's
like I
awesome.
just want to show everyone, like, because like okay, a major experience like a major difference in experience is just transmuting your weapon. If you transmute your weapon, you're gonna have a way different time than if you don't know to do that. So that's something we got to explicitly say.
There's a big problem in Path of Exile with this. And that is the fact that there's RNG behind the crafting system. So imagine, how are you gonna do the tutorial? Well, let's say someone's playing like, I don't know, fucking some melee skill, right? And the quest tells you to to transmute your weapon. The quest tells you to transmute your weapon for a new player, and it then dynamically will explain what happened, if it's a good outcome or not. And a transmute fist damage, and you're like, this is fucking jackpot, you have a really good weapon. Your friend does the same thing and it gets light radius and goes like, well, this fucking sucks. Welcome to Path of Exile. That's the issue, like it's so RNG. It's like, okay, well that was bad. And like you don't really want to make it scripted either. You rig the outcome for the quest? I guess you could. You could make it guaranteed percentage fizz for the quest. I think you kind of have to. Like, you kind of have to. Make it like 30% fizz or something. But then they expect it to be good again. But you can explain that. Like, for this time, we guaranteed like blah, blah, blah. I think, or yeah, 10% MS. But like, you can't give them light radius on their first item and just say, welcome to Path of Exile. This fucking sucks. Are you playing Terraria after the interview? So during the entire time I've been reacting, I've been doing Blood Moon farming on Terraria. So I have over 10,000 Blood Moon orbs now, so that I don't have to worry about potions anymore.
Say like, okay, here is a quest where it's going to drop a transmute. It's going to tell you use your weapon.
I've killed
Like,
15,000 werewolves.
Actually, like just really make sure that new players know to do that.
Almost.
Okay, that makes me so happy to hear for a lot of the new people coming to the game. That'll be great for like 1.0's launch and all that too. Cool. Okay, back to item questions. So, Path of Exile 2, unique items. A lot of the items right now, they fall off as you go into endgame and you scale your character, but it's not because they aren't cool. A lot of them are super cool, but they have no way to scale, past a certain threshold.
Wait, I want to pay attention to this again.
But Exile 2, unique items. A lot of the items right now, they fall off as you go into endgame and you scale your character, but it's not because they aren't cool. A lot of them are super cool, but they have no way to...
I disagree with that. I don't find PoE 2 uniques cool. I mean, there are some, but a lot of them are just straight up garbage. It's not even that they scale. Like, obviously they don't, but they're also just... they're incredibly boring. They need to revisit uniques in PoE 2 like 2 or 3 times. It's rough. Clothes and design? Oh, you mean like the actual like visual? Like the 2D design? Sure. He's trying to be nice. I know, but it's pretty rough. I doubt he's talking about graphics, but I do feel like they're pretty... not even like what the item is supposed to do a lot of the time. It's pretty rough.
Scale, past a certain threshold in the game. Are you guys okay with the number of uniques that are in the game, are cool, but just become a little blip in a character's journey? Or are you looking
they don't even get used,
really reinvigorating some of these items?
I would say, I mean, look, there are some that we definitely need to make more powerful, but I would say that like a lot of the reason is just because we started working on the lower level ones and we're only getting, like only since 010's launch.
Even in my opinion, the lower level ones, I'll explain my thoughts on it and you guys can say if you disagree or not. In Path of Exile 1, if I am playing a new character, let's say like the journey from level 1 to 80, there is a large, especially in Solo Alpha, there's a large amount of Path of Exile 1 uniques that I will put on a new character on day one. A large amount, right? Like the Barrack rings, even like 15 different chests. There's a plethora of uniques that if I find them on day one, I will use them. PoE 2, I found, I think it was 11 to 13 uniques on my first day of playing. On my first day of playing, I found like 11 to 13 uniques, and I vendored each and every one of them. I did not find a single. I know they've improved them slightly since then, but they are extremely rough, where they are not even usable over a literal random 2-stat blue. It's very rough. I found 2 on my first day. Okay, my first day was 36 sessions in your defense, but still. Even things like Praxis is useful day 1. Yeah, like PoE 1 does this really well, so I have faith that they'll get there, but it is very far off in my opinion right now. It is, in my opinion, very far off.
I would say, have we really been focusing on the more high level stuff? And there's more of that stuff coming. I mean, we have more uniques coming.
To be fair, it's not necessarily a bad thing that rares are the way to go, but I like it when both are interesting, which PoE 1 does.
You know, in 021. Like the focus on unique design now is that sort of in-game, like, you know, like later on stuff that you can use viably on a character going forward. So like that is definitely the case. You know, at the same time, there's a bunch of stuff out there that people would use if it ever dropped, right? So like it's funny because like we were actually looking at, so because Mark and I actually did this exercise recently together. We're like, okay, so like what's the stuff I'm excited to drop, right? And like we started looking through some uniques and like we were just like, man, we forgot we even added this, right? Like it's so rare. There's like 12 Astramentuses that have dropped on the live realm, you know what I mean? It's like
Well,
no, that's not actually accurate. There were 12 in trade. There were like 12 in trade at the time that we looked. It's like
Okay.
it's like, man, like okay, we worked out. I actually worked out recently because I've actually been recently writing simulator to so I can like more easily work out some of what this going. Like we have like things we can do to work this out, but like it wasn't easy enough. I want to be able to just at an instant's notice as we're changing balance numbers, like the result on the item drops are. So I started writing a tool for that, and I found out that like an Astramentus will drop every 45,000 divines, and it's like, okay, like
yeah, that's out.
It's like, how many years do you have to wait?
The what? So what now? Wow.
That's crazy.
And it's like, okay, we're not in the right universe here as far as like the drop rate of something like that. So yeah, they effectively do not exist as far as a regular player is concerned.
So these drop rate bugs are
like,
pretty
okay.
substantial. Then I didn't
Yeah,
ascertain
yeah.
this from
Oh
the
yeah,
patch
they
notes.
are. They're very, very, very substantial. I mean, look, it's like I think in trade at the time we saw one was like selling for like 600 divines, and I'm like, this is actually technically cheap compared to the drop rate of this thing. I was like, people don't even know when this drops, so they're just sitting at like a thing. So yeah, this that needs to change, obviously, right?
Okay.
And like one of the key actual differences, and I get this is a little bit inside of things we don't normally talk about, but whatever, I'll talk about it anyway. So like one of the changes that PoE 2 had that I think that enriched, but we're actually going to change this back, and this is like a major thing that will improve things, is in PoE 2 the chance of a unique dropping is scaled by the chance of the drop pool of that type of item dropping. So what I mean by that is like unique amulets are like rarer because they're an amulet. But in PoE 1, this was not the case. Like all the uniques were in one pool that then, like, you know, they all had an equal chance. I mean, not equal, right? There's rare and there's common ones. But being an amulet didn't affect the chance for it to drop, right? In PoE 2, the reason why Astramentus is like so completely ridiculous is because amulets being a rarer like thing just in the base pool anyway means that the unique version of the amulet is now incredibly rare, like to a point where they might as well not exist. So what you'll see at, like, you know, as a starting point is that jewelry that are uniques will be way more common than they currently are, just because we're now putting them back into the regular pool with the other uniques that they can roll together. And so that's like an example of the kind of thing that will improve it. And it's like, yeah, like some of the stuff just doesn't have an opportunity to be a chase item you're even thinking about because it's so rare. You just don't expect it. It's like not even a thing, right? I mean, it's like effectively Mirror of Calandra tier at this point, and that's not what we really intended, and something that is going
Right.
to change. So,
That's wild to hear. Hey, Astromenta stonks. Okay, here we go. Right now.
They did go up in price after.
Maybe I'll find one. That's cool. Okay, so a little bit of a focus now as we get to the final section of the interview, dude, on
No?
the future of PoE 2. So just
Mhm.
onward. One thing I'm really curious about, and I think a lot of other people are as well, many ARPG veterans have been conditioned to view the campaign as a blip in the journey. You know, you start there and you get through it as fast as possible.
I love the
Obviously, Path
campaign,
of Exile
sort
2
of.
has been trying to change that. There has been tremendous
PoE one more.
discourse on this fact, you know, in 0.1 and in 0.2. I'm curious, taking all this and looking at it and looking toward the future, maybe even Acts 4, 5, and 6, how do you see the Path of Exile 2 campaign evolving?
Well, I would say that most of the stuff around this really comes down to the kind of like play speed concerns that people have. So it's like if we can address that, I don't think people are going to be concerned about like campaign length anymore. Like I would say that like it's not necessarily the case that PoE 2 is that much longer, if it even is that longer at all than PoE 1. If you would think of it in terms of like total distance you need to actually
Sure.
walk and number
I
of
agree with
monsters you need to
that.
kill, it's just that like
We're
it's
slower.
just the pace is the concern. So if that is higher, or if like there's ways to be that faster in that way, then I think that those kind of concerns will definitely go away or down significantly at the very least. At the same time, it's not helping that.
That's a joke. PoE 2 is way longer. Well, no, not necessarily. Like, we are literally insanely fast in PoE 1. He's not talking about time spent. He's talking about distance traveled for your character. Whereas, like, PoE 2 and PoE 1 is probably... Well, like, I don't know. It takes me, like, 5 or 6 hours to do the PoE 2 campaign, and the fastest I've done the PoE 1 campaign is, 2 hours and 3 minutes on hardcore. So, yeah, like, time-wise, it's 3 times longer. But if we were as slow in PoE 1 as PoE 2, it'd probably take me 6 hours.
Cruel difficulty exists, right? Like that's certainly something that is like makes the experience worse. And like it's not like we want cruel difficulty to be there, right? Like it's a compromise that exists until the point we can get more content in. So like basically once we can remove that, I think as well that will help a lot. So that I think it's really the combination of those things that are the primary reason why why there's a lot of concern over this. And so effectively, so long as we can fix both of those problems, then I think that stuff will be a lot better.
Okay, no announcements here, but there was an interview you did for 020 about Acts 4, 5, and 6, and how it was a little confusing, like the answer. Do you think that they'll be coming one by one, or do you think they'll all be dropping at the same time? I don't know if you know the interview I'm referring to or not.
I just don't. I unfortunately don't want to announce anything.
Oh, you don't.
You'll just have to wait for that one.
Okay, that's totally fine. All right, I get it. Okay, in the future, now you touched on some archetypes not being fully explored right now, and you might actually be buffing stuff up in this league. Is fire on your radar at all? Because compared to a cold and lightning, it just feels a little lackluster. And I don't know if you think that's just a like design or damage or anything.
I mean, okay, so I definitely would agree that lightning is in a better place than cold and fire. I don't fully know if I would agree that cold and fire are necessarily like that far apart from each other. This actually comes down, I think, to the thing I was touching on earlier about like the ability for a skill to scale. Like lightning, just kind of like when you're designing a lightning skill, like it bouncing around between enemies is kind of like just one of those things that tends to happen, right? Because it's lightning, right? Obviously it should do that. And so what that's kind of led to is like when you're not thinking too hard about scaling, lightning just sort of naturally scales more because it can hit more targets, because it kind of auto targets and bounces. You get those kind of skills that allow it to kind of get that kind of end game clear ability. And fire and cold, it's like I think we have to be a bit more explicit in order to make that happen. So I would say that's kind of the reason. I think, like, I mean, obviously there's going to be balanced numbers and there's going to be a million other things and they're unique and there's like 20 other reasons why this can matter. But I think just from the base level in terms of scaling, like lightning just as a design space tends to scale more even when you're not thinking about it. And then the other two, not so much. So I think that that's kind of part of why Lightning in particular is kind of like ended up being something that has got more of that going on.
Lightning and cold have like utility too, with like chill, freeze,
Yeah, sure,
electrocute.
sure. I
Yeah.
mean, look, fire sort of has its whole burning thing. I mean, look,
Mm.
the whole difference between damage types things is also something that I think that we didn't explore enough yet in the unique space as well.
Mm.
So what I mean by that is, um, uh, I don't think that conversion in PoE 2 matters that much because like
Oh.
there isn't enough kind of going on that like allows that to matter, if you know what I'm saying.
Double
So like
dipping and
it's
stuff?
kind of like that kind of stuff. I think like we need to like more mechanics, and uniques, like more sort of things in the game will kind of hopefully address that and like make those elements like matter more in terms
Yeah.
of what makes them unique and different because of like what's available to use in the rest of your toolbox.
Would you
It's also a big part of that too, right? Is that there's a huge systematic difference in how conversion works in PoE 2 compared to PoE 1, right? Like in PoE 1, if I'm converting cold, let's say I'm converting 100% of my cold damage to fire, and then I get 70% increased cold damage, that still affects my skill, whereas in PoE 2 it doesn't. So it's like it's completely different systematically, just the baseline it works. Which does change conversion a lot. It basically just means that yes, this skill can also be fire, but that makes it a lot more like I feel like in PoE 2, because of that, it makes it a lot more like, well, what element is better? Oh, freezing is better because I literally get to freeze everything, then I'm gonna play freeze. Right? So conversion is worse in PoE 2? Well, yeah, it is objectively less powerful. It is objectively less powerful.
Do you guys consider support
I mean,
gems to convert elemental damage at any point?
I mean, it's not like I mean, the thing is, right now, I don't think the conversion is really that valuable thing. Like, it's not like I don't think there's enough kind of going on. Then it's like quintessentially like okay, so Acolyte of Chalula, for example, right? Like the chaos conversion is just like not really valuable like it should be,
Right.
and it's just because like there's not really anything about that that's kind of like important enough. So it's like when this was designed, it's like the assumption was, oh, like converting to chaos is valuable, right? Like it was valuable in PoE 1, therefore it's valuable here, but it's kind of not because like of the other tools that are available. And so then it kind of ends up making that class like not as cool as it should be for that reason. So it's like then we either have to think, okay, do we need to be adding tools that are going to make that more, or do we need to be adjusting how that class works? Like, we obviously have to work this out, like make some other changes potentially. But it's like that kind of stuff. It's like sometimes there is just PoE 1 brain going on in terms of like, oh, like this is valuable in PoE 1, therefore it must be valuable in PoE 2. Like, you sometimes don't even think that fully through, right? Because you like to even understand why or it is or is not kind of depends on a full understanding of like every other, the whole unique metagame. The thing is like tomorrow a unique could come out. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying tomorrow a unique could come out that like that makes Acolyte of Charlie is suddenly amazing, right? It's like it's completely down to like the context in which it exists in. So what I'm saying is like, yeah, it's
going to come out next week, is what you're saying, right? Yeah.
I'm not going to promise anything. I don't actually know for sure the case, but what I'm saying is like there's that element going on. So
okay.
I wonder if they will ever consider just changing fundamentally the way conversion works in PoE 2. There are so many issues with them retaining the damage from the previous, though. It does make but it is kind of fun. It is a fun way to scale through conversion. Oh man, I do see the benefits in the PoE 2 way, though. I do.
That I would say is part of the problem. Like we just need to make sure that we're like understanding a bit more about like what about. But look, it's easy once you've got players playing it and you can see what they're doing and you can see that they haven't found anything, right? It's like, okay, well, if they haven't found anything yet, that probably means they're not going to. We probably have to like actually come up with something to juice this particularly, whether that's the class or whether that's unique or some other element, to make that possible. We just need to sort of make that happen. And I'd say conversion in general, but Acolyte of Chalia in particular, like has like problems around that.
So you got that, you're segueing perfectly into a rapid fire question. Acolyte of Chayula, we have like 23 Acolyte players out there, and they really want some love. You guys aware? Is that maybe one of the candidates for a buff in?
Oh, definitely for sure. Yeah,
it is
for sure.
Awesome, fantastic, nice. Good to hear. Okay, if
okay.
You're not gonna answer campaign questions. How about let's do one more endgame question, then I got a set of really quick questions to answer. Okay. So. The infinitely expanding Atlas, as more people have played it, like I said, 6 months, going into like 1.0, whenever that comes out, are you confident this is going to be the system going into 1.0?
Well, I guess what I would say about that is basically, I mean, we sort of covered this before, right? Like where I was discussing the
do a
thing with
lot
the towers
with it,
overlapping and all
right.
those various things.
Yeah.
That kind of really comes down, all comes into it. So what I would say is like, I, I don't think we've found it quite yet.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
hope that I personally love the whole infinite expanding atlas thing, like as an idea, and like I want to make sure that can happen. But obviously, like nothing, if it doesn't, if we can't make the end game awesome, then we will change it, right? Like everything's like
Not
that.
final.
Now, as I
Yeah,
said, I
right.
think we've got a lot more to try before we have to change how that is.
I do
But
like that they're trying
that
stuff.
it's like nothing is sacred ultimately if it means getting in the way of like something being good. So yeah,
That's
like,
good.
I want it to be there. We'll see what happens.
Okay, cool.
That's good.
All right, lots of rapid fire questions here, and then we'll close out with a question that I'm sure that you'll answer. You won't dodge me out of it at all. Okay, so
Okay.
div cards. We saw mention the winner in all three races is going to be able to
When are
make
they
one.
gonna
Yeah,
start
yeah, yeah.
Are
selling
they
those?
coming soon? And if they are, any changes from POE 1, are they going to work the same?
Pretty soon. Fundamentally they work similarly, but we do have some
Restrictions.
just like stuff to kind of make it a little bit like. I mean, there,
You can tell me. It's okay. Nobody's listening.
it's like there were some just cases in PoE 1 where you kind of had like some of the things you could pick, kind of like were a bit
Boss uniques. Please, for the love of everything, don't let boss div cards drop from anything but bosses.
silly, like in a way. Not okay. That's not quite getting to it. It's like I don't want just like 20 copies of div cards that are effectively ultimately doing the same thing, just because they got slightly different variations, same like exact stuff. So we're gonna control that a little bit more this time to kind of make it sort of like,
Yeah.
okay, if you're the div card that's this, then like that's your thing, and like no one else is gonna be stomping on that. You don't kind of have like a
Oh.
million ways to all just give you a like
Fascinating.
a mage blood.
Okay. Got it.
Like in PoE 1, you know what I mean? Like, so we want to
Yeah.
just do some adjustments there, but that's kind of more of a thing around, like, the people making the div cards rather than the thing around actually finding them. So I don't have anything to talk about on that side yet, but yeah, it won't be too far away. We do have some pretty nice looking art.
I'm 90% sure that there just won't be boss div cards. Or at least if they do exist, that they will only drop from the boss that drops it.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. So,
Is it going to be different from
yeah.
Path of Exile 1, like brand new art for PoE 2 for div cards?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's
Yeah.
exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
Is the plan to still allow players to log into separate accounts via couch co-op? Because I know that was originally
That
the
is
intention.
the plan. That will probably be the thing.
Wait. I don't know if he just said this or not. If so, I didn't pay attention. But like, there are no PoE 1 cards carrying over to PoE 2, correct? Like they're going to be all new. It would make no sense for them to carry over. All different art? No, I'm talking about the base cards. Yeah, there's no way that the cards themselves are carrying over. That's why he says there's new art. Because, like, we don't know. We kind of do know. They will carry over, I bet. Why would they? So, for those that don't know, every single divination card, somebody has paid money to make. So it's just like, they were just reshooting themselves. Like, they haven't designed a single one. So it makes no sense to carry any over. Like, they 100% won't. I currently am not streaming on YouTube. I've had some issues with YouTube.
Thing that the console guys do after they've done the ability to transition from mouse and keyboard to controller.
There's not going to be filler cards. I mean, if you pay money to make one, there will be. Bex's card was technically designed by them. No, it was not. It was literally designed by Bex as an individual. What if I design a new card in PoE 2 with the same effect? Yeah, you can, but I'm saying there won't be any carrying over. Obviously, make the same one. The Void is also not designed by GDD, and it is not designed with a divination card token. It is designed with a unique card token. That's why it's so different. Do you know how many filler reliquary items there were? None. Everything like that is... Yeah, there are no filler reliquary items. There are no filler divination cards. She was an employee though, right? But it was another user that bought and gifted her the div card creation. She didn't make it as an employee. I thought they gave her one so she could no. Like for example, I have one POE 1 design div card and one POE 2 design div card still left.
On the fly, like on the fly.
Seamlessly,
So once
yeah.
they're done with that, we'll probably work on the couch co-op different account thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I've heard chat is going wild about this, and I know you've talked about it ad nauseum, but I'm still curious. Any more options for armor or defensive layers related to it potentially coming in 0.20 or 0.3?
I don't have anything to say about it at this point. Like, well, this is one of those this is probably going to be another freaking multi-day conversation with Mike to work out the details of. So once POE1's out, we'll probably have a long discussion. I'm certain about. Certainly something that people are very keen for.
Okay. Any timeline on adding passive tree layouts to the game? We know that those are coming in POE2. Any timeline on those?
Oh, you mean
Just
the
pathing? The pathing.
the thing where yeah. You know what? I need to follow up on that again. I actually don't know what the timeline was on that one. I need to go talk to the UI guys about when that will be. Hopefully, I mean, look, I want to get it in, so it won't be too far away.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Would it be possible to add an option to disable auto-targeting either as a global setting or on a skill-by-skill basis? I've heard some people complaining about that a little bit.
So I have a huge thing about this.
Uh-oh. Not a rapid-fire question.
But this is not a rapid-fire question. It's a very complicated thing. Okay, so because I've got like crazy theories about why this is suddenly an issue and like all these other things. Like it's like a whole. So because okay. POE2 and POE1 targeting is identical. There is no difference between these, right? And targeting in POE1 was not a big thing that people were worried about. Like this just wasn't a thing. And so I'm like, why is it different in POE2? Because people have been saying, okay, it's like there's a lot of people talking about parallax error, right? So what we're talking about here is like targeting is relative to your feet, right? Mm-hmm. And like to me, that makes total sense because I'm like, okay, like when you click, that's exactly where you move to. When you right click, that's exactly where the projectile flies over, right? Like it seems to make sense to me. And so I always assumed that this was how every ARPG worked. Like I actually just assumed that. Like I didn't actually know, and I never really thought about it before because it was just so obvious to me that that's how it should be. But then when people started posting about this, I'm like, okay, I'm actually going to try out just like a bunch of other games and just see, like, really look at them, how they work. And I noticed that, like, okay, the first one I tried was D4, and I'm like, okay, they actually do this differently. They have it so that when you right click, the projectile exactly moves to the mouse. And to me, I'm like, this is insane, actually, because like when you click in the location, you run to a different, like if you click to your right, you'll run right. But if you right click there and fire a projectile, you'll fire diagonally downwards. And I'm like, okay, like, and yet this is more intuitive to people. And so I'm starting to think like, okay, well, at least to some people, right? So I'm starting to think like, okay, well, what's the difference here? And then I started thinking like, a big change in POE 1 and 2 was WASD. And when you're using click to move, every time you click, it's like reinforcing the fact that everything's relative to your feet because it's like that's where you move to, right? So you're like click, you're moving there every single time. Every single click is like reinforcing this like way of thinking about where things are relative to your character. Right. But when you're in WASD, oftentimes you are effectively just saying, I want to fire that way. You know, like this is the direction I want to fire in. So maybe you like internally in your head, you just sort of think about it differently. So if you're like, to me, it working the other way is actually unintuitive. And I actually tried in D4, like, okay, if I like don't click on the monster, if I like am specifically trying to click on the ground to hit the monster, and I just play like that for a little while, like what do I end up with? And I actually was missing all the time because once again, it's not intuitive to me. But I'm like, okay, but if like one of the biggest other RPGs works this way, it does seem reasonable for us to have an option to change it to work that way. And so then I started looking into these other games, and so like I checked Last Epoch. That one somewhat inexplicably seems to look at your knee height, and I don't know why, rather than the chest height. That's kind of weird. So I don't know what's going on with that. What's it called?
Torchlight? Maybe?
Sorry, what was that? Sorry?
Torchlight Infinite? I don't know.
Torchlight Infinite.
No,
that's chest height. No Rest for the Wicked. I actually didn't check that one. Okay. But I checked. Oh God, what's it called? Whatever. There was another one I checked that was also feet. Okay. Like it is a variety, right?
Okay.
The game. But okay, but it's like Diablo 4 is obviously like a game that tons of people played. You know, you got a lot of people coming from that to us. Like this fundamental thing
Hey,
working
dude.
differently is something that
Mhm.
can matter. So basically, what I'm saying is we are actually looking into having an option for this. Whether or not it's the default or not is going to be an argument.
Okay.
You know, like that's a question. And I think that and the reason why I bring this up, right, when you just talk about the whole disabling the auto targeting thing, is
Yeah.
because there's a very specific and this might even be hard to explain without a picture, so I might have to hold this coffee cup up here
Oh, here
as
we
as
go.
a visual aid here. So okay, we're getting right into it now. Basically, okay. So if you are targeting from your chest to chest, then basically when you move off, like if this is the bounding box of a monster,
Okay.
then as soon as you move the cursor off that, then the location on the ground that is nearest to that will be closer in terms of like the angle that your projectile would fire to the like location, like you move a small amount of distance of the mouse
I want
and you
that
get a
cup.
small amount of rotation
Uh-huh.
of like where you're going to aim.
Right.
But using the system from your feet, it means that like when you move off a monster, that change in angle is quite a lot larger, because if you move off from here to here, it's like there's quite a big snap that happens. And so I think that when people are talking about wanting to disable this, it's because when they slightly click off the monster, it's resulting in an outsized amount of difference in angle of actual that you're attacking with.
Yep.
And so that sort of then means you're like, your instinct without sort of thinking about it too hard is going to be, oh, I just want to disable that, right?
Mhm.
Rather than it just being that, like, if the 2 points were closer together, then that wouldn't be a concern that you would have. So as I said, I want to try just first, like, okay, let's just try with this thing to do that, and then we'll see how that goes. And then like there might be a world where I'd consider having it so that you can disable name locking as well. But I don't think that's going to be a complaint. Like it never was in POE 1.
Mhm.
The moment that you don't have that problem. And as I said, I think in POE 1, the reason why it wasn't because people were so conditioned to how it worked from
Yeah.
the way you're clicking to move. So I think it really is WASD that introduced us to that issue. But yeah, anyway, that's a long rant. It's like a whole thing that we're looking into at the moment, and that's what I have to say about that. But as I said, it took quite a lot of like thinking about it and working it out to sort of see what the issue was there.
Okay.
I love how
Well,
passionate
thank you,
he is.
Diablo 4. We'll look out for it. That's pretty cool. Okay. So on consoles, the Hideout music player doesn't work after being bought. Any idea
Right.
if there's a fix? Like people apparently been reporting
I honestly, like, that was not on my radar.
Oh,
Go like immediately and just ask someone to see why that is, because
we want to hear
there's
Camille's
almost certainly going to
bangers.
be a bug in the issue tracker.
Okay.
There's almost certainly a bug in the issue tracker sitting there about that, and I just need to say that that's kind of unacceptable that doesn't work.
Awesome. And then one little quality of life feature before the silly question. Some people have difficulty reading text in chat in game. Is there an opportunity to perhaps add some options like an opacity slider on it instead of being all or nothing?
So we for like a long time have been wanting to do like a full chat revamp.
Oh,
And
yes.
the problem then has been that because we've got that in the like what we want to do, it means that every
Oh,
time someone
yeah.
suggests like a little thing, they're like, oh, but we should just wait to do that for the whole huge chat.
Yeah, that's something they do a lot that I'm not a huge fan of. Like, sometimes a band-aid, like, if the real solution is years away, a band-aid is important. It really is. Like, for example, like, they were really frustrating. I think the most frustrating thing for me with this was Burning Ground and Rain, where they were like, oh, we just want to fix it properly. And I was like, just remove it temporarily until you can fix it. No one's going to be like, where is my laggy Burning Ground? Like, just, like, they could be a little bit more band-aidy, I think, with some things when the big issue is years away from being fixed.
Chat revamp. But I just need to actually make sure the chat revamp happens so that, because we want to add more options and more things and like have a bunch more stuff going on with that. So
Okay.
yeah, basically before release, definitely we will have a chat revamp, and that'll like a lot of those kinds of problems we can just.
Nice.
All right. Awesome. One more Path of Exile related question, and one that is unrelated, unless maybe it inspires you. Anybody in the office playing Expedition 33? I have to ask. It's the only game that's taken me away from POE 2, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, certainly it's pretty popular. I played it.
Okay.
I kind of like I fell off right after the end of Act 1.
Really?
Not to spoil anything, but there was something that happened there that kind of, for some reason, just kind of made me go, I don't know. Like, it just kind of, maybe a bit unhappy now. People tell me that I really should keep going because there's a lot more cool stuff, and so I hopefully I will get time to do that. But
I haven't played it.
yeah, and then Doom came out, and like, and then
Okay.
there was that whole thing, and like so I kind of got knocked off again. But,
Wow,
there's
I did
lots of
not
people around the
think he
office
would
who
be
are
a
loving
Doom
it.
player.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I know why you fell off, and it tells me a lot
Game of the decade is a crazy thing to say in the same decade Baldur's Gate 3 came out.
About your personality, Jonathan, so everybody can. No
Okay.
spoilers in the chat, guys. No spoilers.
Yeah,
But okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Last question before we send you off, man. Thank you for staying a few minutes over. Okay. Jonathan, I duped myself into thinking the druid was coming into Dawn of the Hunt. I was like completely blinders on. Everyone's like, you're wrong, you're wrong. No, the druid's coming, the huntress is coming. I know it was originally supposed to like release with the huntress, and you don't need to get into timelines with the druid. I'm curious, can you reveal what kind of happened there? Was there like I heard something about animation snafus. Was it a balance concern? Like, what's happening?
It just wasn't ready. That's all I can say.
Just wasn't ready.
It just wasn't ready. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know what else to tell you.
Okay. Are Bear and Wolf forms still planned? Those two?
Well, you will have to find out when we announce
Okay.
everything.
Okay. Well, I have a few more things, but I don't want to go over time, man. Thank you so much for giving me an hour and a half of your day. I know that you were booked literally the entire week except for this 90-minute window. So I really appreciate it. I do.
He's a busy guy.
No problem.
I wish you luck with the Path of Exile 1 League. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before?
Oh, not really. I mean, yeah, that's great. It's a great interview.
Okay.
So, thanks very much.
All
And,
right.
yeah, I'll see you
Good
again
job
next time.
trying.
All right. Definitely, Jonathan. Have a great one. Talk to you later.
You too. You too.
All right. Chat. How was it? How did the interview go?
Good job. I'll link it in chat. Really good job, Try. Lots of good questions. Glaze Nation rise up. That's funny. No, it was really good. I liked it. I mean, the thing that is the most exciting for me was the fact that they're doing leagues every 2 months, basically, for me, since I play both POE 1 and POE 2. Yeah, follow-ups. That was definitely like my favorite part. That's so huge for me as a streamer, especially. That was really good. Enjoyed that a lot. But yeah, good. I'm excited. I actually can't wait for POE 1 season. I'm so hyped. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed me reacting to that. Go check out Talkative Try. I'll link it in the description down below as well if you want to see the full interview. And try to die less than I do.